Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Market Open. 2 days in a row of being early. I think it's becoming a trend. I think it's time to trip everybody off their game and be here 2 minutes early every single day. You guys already started saying late comments. We're literally not late. You're gonna have to start spamming early. Baby. We're live. Good morning. Thank you, everybody, for being here. It is Tuesday, March 24th. We have a ton to talk about. Yesterday, we had a green day in the stock market, 1% up on the day. We were up 2%. We gave back 50% of the gains. And the question is now going to be, can we go for 2 days in a row of green? And then after that second day, hopefully we can get that third day, which is what we have not been able to find all year outside of like early January where we had 3 green days in a row. It has been really tough to go green multiple times in a row going into the week. We have a lot of updates on the war. I know we had a lot of stuff happen yesterday. We have a lot of stuff that has happened since yesterday that is conflicted with all the stuff that happened yesterday, which is why we are red in the pre-markets. It's not that ugly in the pre-markets, but the S&P 500 is giving up about 50% of the gains that we got yesterday. Down about 0.5%. We were up 1% yesterday. So obviously it looks like it's going to go back down into the chop of being red. I hope that doesn't happen. I hope we get a bit of a rebound, but some of these headlines aren't the best, particularly for oil. Oil is spiking once again. Crude was below 90 yesterday. It is back above 90 this morning. So the choppy nature of how oil is reacting to, or how the equity markets are reacting to oil continues to persist. And then the 10-year, we were making a little bit of progress yesterday. I mean, we're basically right back where we were. I mean, we went from 4.4 down to 4.38. It's, again, a little bit of progress, but given that we're still up, yeah, we are not doing the best with bond yield. So we will talk about it. We will get into everything we got to go into, and we will keep going from there. Good morning, Tesla Granny. Thank you for being here. Ed, Leah, Charles, Sam, Desi. Thank you for being here. Desiree, hopefully you are doing well. Bruiser Birdie, Taco Tuesday. Let's see. Hopefully we get a little bit more of a taco from Trump. Maybe it happens, maybe it doesn't. I think he's trying to, and we'll talk about all the things he said yesterday and this off-ramp he's looking for. But as of now, we are not fully there yet. Carolyn Chang, good morning. Big Shot, good morning. Krishna, good morning. Sammy, Mamba Mentality, Kane Thomas, Danielle, what's up? Good morning. Georgina, good morning. Tony, hope everyone is having a good day. Are you using any product in your hair? No, it's just water. It's literally just a little bit of water. That's it. You guys really seem to like the short hair. I was talking about it yesterday. It's like I spent the last 4.5 years thinking I needed long hair, which is why I wore the hat so much, because I have so much hair I can't control it. And the solution was like, my mom told me 4 years ago to just cut it. And I was like, no, that's not going to, like, she was right. Like, I should have just cut it 4 years ago. I don't know if I'll ever grow it back to be as long as it used to be. Maybe. We'll see, but it's definitely a lot easier to manage, which is also just easy in terms of getting ready for the morning and getting everything done that we have to do. My son said you look like you're a bit younger. Okay, well, I guess it's taken off some years as well. All right, so let's get into it. We got a bunch of different things to talk about. Again, thank you all for being here. A variety of different headlines that are impacting the equity markets and why we are seeing some of the red that we're seeing, and also some headlines that are not necessarily just about stocks, but definitely important for the broader AI sector. Jensen did the Lex Friedman podcast yesterday, and he said a lot of different stuff that I think was really interesting. Also, first Substack article after a couple of weeks is out. It is doubling down on NVIDIA. I will link it right here in the chat. The title is NVIDIA, We Don't Have Enough Compute, and people can read it if they are interested, but did a little bit more of a deep dive on what's been happening with NVIDIA over the past couple months. And we'll have a new article later today on Amazon. So we are getting back into the article grind. We also have some updates on Grab that we'll talk about as well today. They're actually starting to get a little bit of momentum in terms of the updates, and maybe that'll reflect into the price action as well. All right, so let's get into it. Raul, what's up? Ethan, what's up? Mary, what's up? Christina, thank you all for being here. Let's get started. So I think the first thing we got to get into is what is happening in this Iranian war. So what happened yesterday? Number one is Trump said he is going to stop the bombs on the power plants in Iran for the next 5 days, which creates a lot of uncertainty because what's going to happen over the next 5 days. But it at least creates a little bit of certainty that we're not going to have this aggressive bombing. And quite frankly, it's probably Trump signaling that he doesn't want to be as aggressive when it comes to bombing. Now, you had a lot of reports come out over the weekend, or not over the weekend, over the past 24 hours saying that Trump is saying this as a bluff in order to buy himself time to get more military ships and boots into Iran, or at least into the Gulf, in order to launch more strong-suited attacks, which quite frankly could be true. I based on the amount of times Trump, 3 times yesterday, Trump told the media that he is not interested in attacking, and that he is ready to end this war. And he's been very explicit about that. So maybe that is, what's going to happen. But you do have a lot of people speculating that no, Trump is just lying and he just wants to create more time to be able to attack. At least that's what some of the Iranian officials are saying as well. What happened yesterday in terms of the stock market? Well, 1.5 billion worth of futures were bought at 650. It was enough to move the entire index of the S&P 500 up 0.3%. At 7:04, Trump says the deal talks are underway. The S&P 500 added $2 trillion of market capitalization by 7:10. So someone made a lot of money. It feels kind of obvious there was some level of manipulation. There was someone, I was reading their article, they said they've been trading futures for the past 20 years, and never have they seen something like this. They are saying it's, and again, it's just their perspective, but based on their experience, they're saying undoubtedly someone had to know that this was happening. I mean, you would not buy $1.5 billion worth of S&P 500 futures after horrible headlines from Sunday and just magically assume 14 minutes later everything was going to be okay. So, I mean, it definitely is kind of concerning to see how this is playing out, but nonetheless, someone is making money off this, and the question is just, will we be able to end the war soon enough for the broader markets to feel that everyone can make money and we can kind of move on from the volatility that we're experiencing. So then, after Trump said the war is going to come to an end and he's, trying to get these peace deals, Iran came out, they said, no, we're not talking to Trump. And obviously Iran has their own incentive to say that they're not talking to the U.S. because Iran wants to have as much political, geopolitical, political, socioeconomic, and economic instability within the United States credit markets and equity markets, because obviously if oil is going up, if bond yields are going up, then Trump feels more pressure and he's less likely to attack. So Iran was like, no, we're not talking to him. And Trump is insisting, no, I am talking to everyone. And Politico reported that the person he's talking to is the parliament president of Iran, Mohammad Bagher Ghalibaf. And the idea is that not only is he the official representative for the Iranians, but also he is the next successor that the United States and Israel are interested in taking over the Ayatollah. Now, I don't think they're going to kill the Ayatollah, but nonetheless, they want this guy to be the person that they talk to. The problem is overnight, Iran launched the missile attack and drone attacks in Tel Aviv and U.S. bases in the region. Saudi Arabia also said it intercepted a drone in its eastern region. Kuwait reported power line disruptions after Iranian attack, and sirens were sounded in Bahrain. FAR has also reported that the U.S.-Israeli strikes damaged a gas pressure regulation plant in Iran and an administrative building in Isfahan, along with a pipeline supplying the combined cycle power plant in Kromashar that I'm probably saying the name wrong of. But the point is, there are more attacks overnight, back and forth between the United States, Iran, and Israel, and these neighboring Gulf states like Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, and Bahrain. And that is why oil prices are up once again. They're not up as much as they were in the Sunday night futures. They're up 4%, which is a lot, but it's not like 10, 15% like it was on Sunday. Because of the idea that, once again, although Trump may say he wants the war to end, there is not enough evidence on the ground yet to officially or even somewhat officially declare that the war is meaningfully coming to an end, no matter how many times Trump says that he wants the war to come to an end. And then on top of that, you got the Wall Street Journal reporting over the night that Saudi Arabia and the UAE are inching towards joining the U.S.-Israeli war. The details here are Gulf countries are getting tougher following persistent attacks. Saudi Arabia has agreed to let American forces use its King Fahd airbase. Saudi Arabia's Crown Prince, MBS, is close to a decision to join the attacks. It's only a matter of time before the kingdom enters the war, an insider told Wall Street Journal, and Gulf countries are being pulled deeper into the Iranian war. And quite frankly, you can't blame them. I mean, the Saudi Arabian economy is based on oil money. And MBS is trying to diversify it over the next 20, 30 years to make it not just based on oil. But as of now, one of the reasons the cost of living in Saudi Arabia is so low and there's barely any taxes and there's free healthcare and all that stuff is because the government subsidizes all of that via oil money. And quite frankly, that's why the citizens don't really rebel and strike, right? Because even though they have some more conservative religious laws, not as bad as Iran, but nonetheless, they are still pretty conservative. Everything is taken care of. You have all your basic needs met. If that stops happening, then obviously the Saudis have an incentive to get involved in this war and bomb the crap out of Iran because they cannot have their facilities continue to get hit. The United States and Israel might want that to happen, even though it's going to create more instability. It would help them in defeating Iran. But that is why I think the S&P 500 is down in the pre-markets. It's quite frankly why I think we can have another red day. All of these headlines over the past 24 hours insinuate that no matter how much Trump is trying to say he's ready for the war to end, you're just not really getting the evidence that the war is ready to come to an end. And so I kind of think it's every time he mentions, yep, I'm ready for the war to end, it's going to happen, it's going to be done. The lack of evidence makes it feel like that's not going to take place. And you can tell Trump really wants this to end. Yesterday, he was reminiscing on the golden days of Dow 50,000.
In addition to all of this, we're working on so many different things. Our economy was fantastic. We had a Dow at 50,000. They say it couldn't happen in 4 years. It wouldn't happen during my term. But if I got anywhere close, it would be a great success. Well, in my first year, we hit 50,000. And in addition to all.
So, I mean, you could tell Trump is just like, things were going great. Oil prices were down. The Dow was at 50. We had to take this little excursion, and it's getting to the point where even he probably doesn't care that much about all the initial goals and just wants to get out of this. He also talked about why exactly they went into Iran last night as well.
Iran refused every opportunity to renounce its nuclear ambitions, and in recent months, its own negotiators bragged to our representatives about having enough material to make nuclear weapons. And that was supposed to deter me, but it didn't deter. It made me more anxious, and it just made it much more important. This mission that we're all on together was much more important, and we did it quicker. Iran.
So again, as much as Trump wants to say that this war is ending soon and that it's going to be a quick military operation, it'll be done. Fortunately, we're not there yet. Unfortunately, we are not there yet. Green or red? I'll put the poll right there in the chat and see what people say. Again, the majority of people said it would be green yesterday, and we did go green, but we ended up losing, 50% of that green towards the end of the day. Iran is making ships pay for safe passage through the Strait of Hormuz. According to reports, Iran is charging some ships for safe passage. That report actually came out on Sunday as well. So if it's being reported again, it likely is true. I think the number was like $2 million Iran is charging, and they're not letting, Western allies really get through, especially not the United States. Wow. Hedge fund Millennium explores shifting Dubai staff to New Jersey. Interesting. They're coming to dirty Jersey. I mean, it makes sense they're leaving Dubai, obviously, because I was actually talking to someone yesterday who lived in Dubai, who's moved to Italy for the past 3 weeks because, I mean, they just can't stay. They're taking like a forced vacation in Italy because of how bad the fear and the strikes in Dubai are, and they lived in Dubai their whole life, so they're waiting to come back once the strikes end. But as of now, we're not going to see until that. We're not going to know exactly when that happens. And it's funny, this hedge fund is shifting workers to Jersey instead of New York. They might want to save a little bit of money, not necessarily being in New York, but close to New York. And I think you're going to see a lot more of those headlines of companies kind of taking out some of their workers from different areas. All right, so that is kind of the core stuff that we're looking at in the context of the war. The major updates are a lot of strikes overnight. Unfortunately, we're not looking like there's going to be an end to the war anytime soon, no matter what Trump is saying. That's why the stock market is red. Once again, the pre-market, that's why oil is up. And it would not surprise me if we lose all of the gains that we got yesterday, which would put us back to basically 645 on the S&P. It would be ugly, but it also feels very possible if we don't get any headlines signaling the war is going to end anytime soon. And quite frankly, I think Trump might come out and start calling a bunch of reporters and saying, hey, we're making great progress. The war is going to end. And so far, the market keeps believing it every time he says it. I wonder when the market just straight up says, we do not trust anything you're saying. Because yesterday, they definitely trusted what Trump was saying. We had 2% on the S&P. Eventually, we're going to see if that fades out or if Trump can actually give us some hard evidence that the war is ending. Bitcoin right there, 70.9. By the way, gold is down 18% from the highs. We're back at 4,380. We rebounded to 4,500 yesterday, only to come back down to 4,380. The lows were 4,100. I'm curious if anyone's actually interested in picking up some gold right here. And if this thing actually does go lower, silver as well, 68, 67, that is down about 35% from the highs. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi and U.S. President Donald Trump discussed the Middle East in a phone call on Tuesday, including the importance of keeping the Strait of Hormuz open. Pakistan is emerging as a potential mediator. The Wall Street Journal reported that the Prime Minister of Pakistan was on the phone with Trump as well on Sunday night. And so you're getting some of these other countries not necessarily enter into the war, but enter into the process of potentially allowing the war to come to an end because everyone is concerned about oil prices. And, the better chances we have of oil prices coming down, the better it is for us to at least have some level of stability in the broader markets. Oh, yes, this was another headline that came out this morning. Iran has stopped natural gas exports to Turkey following an Israeli strike on the South Pars gas field. Turkey has a lot of issues already in regards to inflation and hyperinflation. And there were some headlines today that they're thinking of protecting their currency by actually selling some of their gold reserves, because they do have a lot of gold reserves. And they're thinking, hey, to protect the Turkish lira, we might have to sell some of our gold. But time will tell to see exactly how that ends up playing out. All right, so that is what we have in the context of the war. For those asking about VCX, I am not buying it. Once again, I've said over and over, I do not like the private market valuations. So if you're in VCX, that's fine. To me, that's like the ARK Venture Fund. I know they have a big position in Anthropic. I mean, again, if you really want to get access to it, that's fine. I don't like any of the private market valuations, including Anthropic, although I do think that company is properly valued, if not undervalued. If it's put into a fund where you've got all this other junk in it, like, I'd rather just buy one stock, not a fund of Stripe worth 160 billion, where there's no way in hell Stripe deserves to get that valuation in this macro. It was 2 years ago, maybe, but with all the fintechs down 50%, no, Stripe should not be worth 160 billion. So I'm personally staying. I'm same thing with the Robinhood Ventures. I'm just staying away from all of those funds that are trying to pitch retail on some amazing private democratized opportunity. It's like, dude, these valuations are stupid. Like, no, like if NVIDIA could barely get a 20 times forward PE, why are we giving Stripe an 80 times forward PE? Like it doesn't take a rocket scientist to be like, one might be a little bit more expensive. So yeah, to me, not a fan of the private market funds. But again, if you really want exposure, then that's a way to do it. And if people saying, oh, well, they own 15% of Anthropic. Well, so does Amazon. So like you can easily buy something that helps you sleep well at night without having to trust a private fund with a ridiculous equity expense ratio to be able to get access. So those are my thoughts on the private market funds. All right, let's talk about private equity. Let's get an update right here, because this thing is starting to get a little ugly as well.
A lot of redemption requests, and Leslie Pickard joins us now with more. Hey, Leslie.
Hey, Joe. Yeah, you're right there. Apollo Debt Solutions, the firm's $15 billion semi-liquid fund, said it received redemption requests totaling 11.2% of shares. It plans to fulfill less than half of those, just 5%. And that amounts to about $730 million going out the door. However, the firm actually saw $724 million in inflows during the quarter, meaning that the total flows were essentially flat. Now, the redemption levels at Apollo are very similar to what we've seen at Cliffwater and Morgan Stanley and BlackRock, all three of which gated. Blackstone's redemption requests were 7.9%, which were not limited, and we're still waiting on Ares and Carlyle's evergreen funds, as well as a few Blue Owl funds as well. Now, the decision to fulfill all redemption requests is one that hedge fund manager Boaz Weinstein has called the, quote, gold standard for how to treat investors. However, it's also one that can't continue forever, or else a fund risks being a private credit ATM, as BofA analysts called it in a recent note. While gating can be frustrating for those who can't get all their money out, of course, the alternative is selling a bunch of illiquid loans, which may dent performance for the remaining investors, or they can take on additional leverage or draw down on cash if they have enough in store. Now, also in private credit, the publicly traded FSKKR fund, that was cut to junk by Moody's. So that plus the Apollo redemption story is expected to send shares of alt managers lower today.
That's why you're seeing the private credit names continue to get hit. I don't think retail has to care that much about private credit intrinsically, because I don't know how much of retail is loaded up on KKR and Apollo and Blackstone. I mean, these are not really retail-oriented stocks. All of them are down about 3 to 4% in the pre-market right here. But if there is a broader contagion effect, Blackstone down 2%, that is when everyone, not just retail, has to start to get worried about what's happening. And the thing about private credit and private equity is a lot of the people that have invested in these assets are people that have a very high net worth, right? And so they've quite frankly, they can take a loss on this, and they wouldn't be as affected dramatically compared to retail investors that are like, all in one or two names if they were in private credit. But number two is the Apollo, Blackstone, BlackRock, KKR. They can go to these high net worth individuals and say, hey, we are not going to allow you to pull out any money because you need to give us time to weather the storm. And based on some of the contracts that are rooted inside of these private credit companies, they have the ability to have governance over when they're allowed to let people withdraw their funds. I mean, quite frankly, even Michael Burry in 2008 stopped withdrawals from his fund when he was underwater on his short, and everyone wanted to withdraw, and he was like, nope, you gave me full governance over the fund, and I'm not letting you take your money out. Thankfully, he was right. If he was wrong, he probably would have got sued. But the broader argument here is that you'd rather keep that money in the fund and let it trade at a discount to its intrinsic value if the market, were to stay flat. And then when the market recovers, you can mark to market all of those private credit funds back up to at least maybe 80, 90 cents on the dollar, whereas right now they're trading at like 40, 50 cents on the dollar versus taking the 50% haircut. So I think private credit is going to be okay, given it's not necessarily affecting retail. What scares me about it is if retail starts to get offered private credit things inside of their 401k, which we know the SEC is now allowing, and ends up becoming exit liquidity, and someone ends up having to hold the bag. So, you'd rather let high net worth individuals hold the bag and take the loss versus retail. But that is one of the broader issues in private credit. And although I don't think it's a 2008 type of scenario, it's definitely not pretty to kind of see how that's officially playing out. Zeta right there, that's down 1/3%. IGV software continues to go down. IREN's down 1%. Robinhood's down 1%. Grab's up a little bit. We have a couple updates on Grab we'll talk about in a second. SoFi down 1%. Again, Muddy Waters did go on CNBC yesterday, and he made his pitch around why this company is essentially a fraud. Now, he said he's not short SoFi, but he has long-dated puts. And I'm curious, what's the strike on those puts? Like, is he thinking this thing's going to go to $7 or $8 again? Or, is it like owning one put, but being able to say you have puts on SoFi versus actually having a big position? So I think we will find out in due time, but that stock, SoFi, still stuck with all the banks and the bad narratives around the banks. Meta right there, also at $600 in the pre-market, giving up a decent chunk of the gains that they had from yesterday's move as well. Okay, let's talk about some of these other individual stocks and different updates we have on them. So first of all, let's do Grab real quick. A couple updates today that I thought were really important. Number one is they are accelerating the $500 million share buyback that they initiated a couple of weeks ago on the earnings, and they are going to spend 80% of that $500 million over the next 4 months. So they're going to do 400 million shares worth of buybacks. This is about 80% of the 500 million share buyback program. They already signed an accelerated share repurchase agreement with JP Morgan and Morgan Stanley, 250 million JP Morgan, 150 million Morgan Stanley, and they're basically going to buy back their stock over the next 4 months. 400 million, they'll probably be buying back a couple million a day, and that'll happen automatically. And the reason this is good is because I think that also means that the company is recognizing how undervalued they are. The CFO came out today and said, we view the current share price dislocation as a clear opportunity to enhance shareholder value. So you at least have the management team coming out and saying, hey, this is probably a opportunistic time for us to buy back their stock. Obviously, they bought Food Panda yesterday in Taiwan for $600 million, 50% discount to what Uber offered it back in 2024. So I do think that was a good deal, and that is something that got the street excited. Multiple analysts came out and gave it $6.40, $6.30, $6.20, and $7 and $7.50 targets over the past 24 hours. So you had all the analysts pretty much happy with the deal and thinking that it will do well. And then the biggest piece of news that actually happened today that might go under the radar is Grab shareholders approved a new resolution to amend each Class B share vote count to 90 votes instead of 45, which essentially, it's a little technical, but what it does is it gives Anthony Tan, the founder and CEO, voting power increasing from 59% to 75%. Basically, the shareholders of Grab have officially decided to give Anthony Tan entire control of the company. Now, why does it matter to go from 59% to 75%? Because ironically, if you want to have a merger and acquisition, 75% of the total shares outstanding is what you need to be able to approve the merger and acquisition. Now, this happened after the Food Panda Taiwan deal was announced. So it has, in my opinion, nothing to do with Food Panda in Taiwan. It has something to do with a probably larger merger, maybe GoTo, which would obviously reshape the entire region if that does happen later. So now if they want to, buy a company for $2-3 billion or dilute 20% of the company in stock to be able to purchase a bigger company, if Anthony Tan, the founder, thinks it's going to be accretive, he can vote for it himself, which is kind of scary, right? Because that means the guy has a lot of power, which means, if you're buying shares in the company, you really have to trust that he's going to pull it off. But it also means that they're going to not have to go through any bureaucratic process of making big acquisitions. They have a lot of money in cash. And as a shareholder, I want them to use that money. So hopefully that ends up getting done for something meaningful. Now, I think the stock is still going to be flat because higher oil prices are still bad for the entire region. And so I would love to see the stock move on this stuff. It's up 1% in the pre-markets, but unfortunately, given higher oil prices are going to increase subsidies. That's probably going to increase expenses, decrease margins, and that's probably the headwind for Grab going into the next couple months as we get into Q1 earnings. All right, some other individual stocks. Nebius got an upgrade by Bank of America to 150. Nebius has gotten a lot of different updates over the past couple of weeks. 115 right there in the pre-market. That's up 1%. All the neoclouds are getting a little bit more attention from the institutional analysts. CRWV got an upgrade from Bank of America to $100 today. Bank of America basically came out and they said, we think that the growing demand for compute is going to mean and necessitate that these companies continue to have value and that they are not going to be slowing down anytime soon. And then Iran, although they didn't get any upgrades today, I thought something really interesting happened. The Iran CEO went on the All In podcast and Jason asked him if you guys are working with OpenAI. And well, he didn't really have a comment, which I thought was kind of bullish.
We getting ahead of our skis? Are people slowing down? There was some talk about the OpenAI project, maybe downscaling a little bit. Is OpenAI a partner as well, or?
Can't comment.
Can't comment. Okay, so we'll read into that whatever we want, but
it definitely means they're a partner, right? Like, I mean, it doesn't have to mean they're a partner, but I guess there's a reason to not say no because you don't want people to think that you're not working with them, even if you are, but you don't want to say yes because, you know, that's information you can't really disclose. We're getting some more red candles across the board. S&P now lows of the pre-market 651. Bitcoin also losing some steam along with Ethereum, but I thought that was pretty bullish for Iran. Iran has not had a massive deal like Nebius has. I mean, Nebius has had multiple massive deals over the past 2 months. Iran, you know, Anthropic was supposed to be that deal. Then it was OpenAI. We haven't heard anything from them. So I imagine they have the most power capacity at 4.5 gigawatts. If they start utilizing that and get a big deal, then even if they dilute with the 6 billion ATM offering, that would be something that potentially could get the re-rating of the stock, which would be a good idea. Are you single? Can't comment. Wife, did you Hoover? Me, no comment. Yeah, we need to make a meme out of that. We need to make a meme out of that. No comment. But yeah, I thought that was bullish for Iran, and it looks like that could potentially create some momentum for them as well. Iran right here in the pre-market is down 1%. Again, if you are just joining, the reason I think we're seeing red candles right now and the reason we've had red candles all morning, VG though, not seeing any red candles, that's green. Once again, VG goes up, broader market goes down, is because multiple strikes over the past 24 hours have happened in Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, Iraq, and Tel Aviv. As a result of that, the perception of the war stalling is not necessarily being perceived like that anymore. And that's why you're probably seeing some more red. Look at NVIDIA losing 165, 174.60. This thing was almost pushing 177 at like 5 a.m. Oh, I woke up at 5:30 today. Didn't wake up at 4:30, but did wake up at 5:30. We're going to get the 4:30 eventually, but right now it's 5:30. So yeah, it was green when I woke up. I mean, not super green, but it was somewhat green. And then now we're red. So that's what we had with Iran. Also, the CRWV CEO went on the All In podcast. And, you know, one thing we haven't heard of over the past couple of weeks now is this whole idea of depreciation of GPUs. Remember our friend Michael Burry came out and said this is the biggest fraud in the entire AI revolution. It is going to be what collapses AI. Yeah, the CRWV CEO said that's absolute nonsense. And if you look at the H100 rental prices 6 years after that product came out, it feels like the GPU debate is not a real debate.
Finds its own use for technology. So what's the reality of the lifespan of these things?
So my take on the GPU depreciation debate is that it's nonsense, right? It's a debate that is being brought to the forefront by some traders that have a short position in the stock and they're trying to talk down. Look, here's what we know, right? When we buy infrastructure, we're a success-based company, right? We're a small company on a relative basis compared to the enormous companies that we're competing with. And so our clients come into us and they buy compute for 5 years, for 6 years. Our average contract is 5 years. So any commentary by anyone, either inside or outside of the industry, that this stuff becomes obsolete in 16 months or whatever nonsense they're spewing, it doesn't in any way match up with the facts on the ground. The facts on the ground is they're buying it for 5 years, right? And my approach to this has always been, if people are willing to pay me for it, it still has value.
Correct.
Pretty simple way of approaching it. We use 6-year depreciation. We believe that the GPUs will last in excess of 6 years, but we felt like that was a fair and reasonable approach to a technology cycle that's moving at this velocity.
I think it's a fair point. Whether you like CoreWeave or not as an investment is a different question, but CoreWeave knows a lot about depreciation and reselling these GPUs. I mean, and that's why I think you haven't heard Michael Burry come out and talk about the GPU depreciation argument. He made one article about it. You know, he was on it for like a week of like, this is the only reason Meta's growing EPS, yada, yada. And now it's like, well, actually, if there is a life cycle of 6 years, if not more, based on what the CoreWeave CEO is saying around GPUs, then it's not something that you can't meaningfully depreciate. Like, it makes sense for why that life cycle lasts versus how some of the bears are thinking about it. And we're seeing this in the demand for compute writ large as it continues to expand. Obviously, there's multiple examples of that happening, which likely means that is not going to be slowing down anytime soon. And speaking of compute and demand for compute, we got another video from Figure. Humanoid robotics is going to be the next S-curve of demand for compute. I think NVIDIA is very excited about this physical AI revolution. Not the craziest, most impressive video, but nonetheless, you had Mark Benioff, CEO of Salesforce, visit the Figure factory yesterday. And they showed off a use case of a robot flipping over Amazon packages so that the label is on the bottom. I know it's something super basic, but the point is, if a human could do it and a robot could do it for a lot less money, then that's where you're going to see the value from these humanoid robots.
Okay, Figure Robotics. Pretty cool sorting algorithm. Its job is to turn these packages upside down. And I guess we can just take one. Let's see, we're going to take one of these packages. Oh, sorry. Sorry about that. Oh, figured it out. Pretty cool. Wait, oh yeah. Sorry about that again. And also this one. Its job is to flip them upside down.
By the way, we keep treating these robots like this. One day they're going to revolt. I just want everyone to be. The robots will absolutely kill us if we keep abusing them, but at least for now, they're not smart enough.
Yeah, it's really impressive, the Figure 03. Oh, sorry about that. Oh, God. Oh, no. Oh, what it's going to do? Let's see. Oh, got it. Nope. Yep, there it goes. Impressive. Impressive. It's impressive. Wow. Boom. Okay, Figure.
So look, I know it's not the most impressive thing to flip a package over, but again, I think if you're focused just on the use case, you're ignoring the broader industry that's being formed. And if this is the worst it's ever going to be, as the models get better and better and better and more exciting over the long term, then it should be something that ends up becoming a massive industry. And all of these robots need more chips. They need more compute, which is why I think NVIDIA is spending so much time investing and trying to make the argument around why physical AI is going to be the next big frontier when it comes to chip demand. U.S. senior officials worry that if the conflict drags on, Iran could deliver even more punishing attacks on Saudi oil installations, and the United States could be stuck in an endless war, as per the New York Times. I think there are many people in the Trump administration that are leaking a lot of these comments around being afraid or worried or this or that to the media because, they're trying to get the narrative out there that this war needs to come to an end and that the president might be a bit more worried that we're going to be in a war for a longer period of time. And that's why you're seeing these articles, whether it's the Washington Post or the Wall Street Journal or the New York Times or CNBC, finding these quotes from different unnamed officials making the argument that we want the war to come to an end. I mean, David Sachs literally 2 weeks ago went on the All In podcast and flat out said we need to find an off-ramp. And most of the business community, whether it's Brad Gerstner, Jake Howell, et cetera, agreed with him. So I personally think, based on all the videos and conferences and meetings we've seen, Air Force One press conferences with Trump, that he genuinely wants this to come to an end. There was also a report by Politico yesterday saying that 2 senior U.S. White House officials told Politico that the idea of regime change is not something Trump is focused on anymore, and he doesn't even care of getting rid of all the nuclear facilities. He just wants to push back the timeline on Iran being able to develop nuclear weapons. Now, maybe they're wrong, and maybe Trump is like gung-ho on we have to get regime change and we have to get rid of their nuclear weapons. But given how Trump is talking, saying, literally yesterday, he said the war could be done in the next 5 days. It doesn't seem like he wants regime change or to completely eliminate their nukes, because you're not going to do that in the next 5 days. And maybe there's some credibility to these reports about the idea of the war ending sooner. So what was the point of the war? That's a question I think a lot of Americans will be asking. I'm not here to answer that question. Everyone can have their own opinion on that as the 10-year gets right back up to 4.4. But from a market's perspective, objectively, this war ending would be better than not. And And I think that's what everyone is waiting for. Jensen, he was on Lex yesterday. I thought this clip was pretty interesting. Jensen said, hey, NVIDIA can do $3 trillion in revenue at some point.
What does NVIDIA do, and how much of that new economics, new industry would we have to benefit to address? I think we're going to be a lot bigger. And then the rest of it, to me, is is it possible for NVIDIA to be a, $3 trillion revenues company in the near future? The answer is, of course, yes. And the reason for that is because it's not limited by any physical limits. There's nothing that I see that says, $3 trillion is not possible. And as it turns out, NVIDIA supply chain the burden is shared by 200 companies. And the fact that we scale out on the backs with the partnership of this ecosystem, the question is, do we have the energy to do so? And surely we will have the energy to do so. And so all of these things combined, that number is just a number, And I still remember NVIDIA was the first time we crossed $1 billion. I was reminded of a CEO who told me, Jensen, it's theoretically impossible for a fabless semiconductor company to exceed $1 billion. And I won't bore you with why, but of course it's illogical, and there's a lot of evidence we're not. And then somebody told me, Jensen, you'll never be more than $25 billion because of some other company. Somebody told me that you'll never be, because, and then those aren't first principle reason thinking. And the simple way to think about that is, what is it that we make, and how large is the opportunity that we can create? Now, NVIDIA is not in the market share business. Almost everything that I just talked about don't exist. Mm-hmm. That's the part that's hard. If NVIDIA was a $10 billion company trying to take NVIDIA's share, then it's easy to see for shareholders that, oh yeah, if they could just take 10% share, they could be this much larger. But it's hard for people to imagine how large we could be because there's nobody I could take share from, And so I think that's one of the challenges.
That was a gangster thing for him to say. He's like, well, I can't take share from anybody because I have all the share. The other part of this podcast that I thought was really interesting is the agentic revolution. Jensen said OpenClaw was essentially the iPhone moment for tokens.
Token factors. And it's very easy, first principles, to imagine a future, given all the potential things that AI can solve, that you're going to need an exponential number more of token factories.
Yeah. And what's really interesting, the reason why I was so excited about it, the iPhone of tokens arrived.
What do you call it? Wait, are you saying OpenClaw's iPhone?
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Agents.
Yeah, agents. True.
Agents in general. The iPhone of tokens arrived. It is the fastest growing application in history. It went straight up.
Yeah.
Went straight up.
That says something.
Yep. There's no question OpenClaw is the iPhone of tokens.
Yeah, there's some.
Now, this is really important because the more token generation we have, the more compute NVIDIA can sell. If you can monetize those tokens, you have more revenue. So more tokens, more revenue, which comes back to more compute. Even if the cost of tokens goes down substantially, as the cost of inference eventually comes down, if the volume of tokens needed goes up by, like, Jensen said, it could million X, not 10X, not 100X, not 1000X, million X. That's how embedded AI would be in every part of our life. Then the cost could go down substantially. But if the volume of number of tokens needed continues to go up, then obviously that would be the way that NVIDIA continues to get to that $3 trillion in revenue that Jensen's talking about. If they're doing $3 trillion in revenue, they're probably going to be worth more than 10 trillion, which would be more than a double from here. And then on top of that, Claude did it again. They released a product that got 43 million views in less than 24 hours last night. This is like the fourth product they released in the past month and a half that once again is capturing everyone's imagination. This time, you can now enable Claude to use your computer to complete tasks. I'm going to turn off the audio just because of the music. But as you can see right here, when you're not at your laptop, you can program Claude to basically, from your phone, tell it what to do. And then look at that. It goes on your laptop. This is what people were buying the Mac Mini to do, by the way. A lot of people were like buying those Mac Mini. This is only on Mac OS as of now. So it's kind of undercutting the necessity for all these people to buy their own Mac Minis and do this themselves, because now Claude does it. And it's essentially a remote desktop in just a more enhanced way via agents. So you've got a lot of startups that were working on this. I think those startups kind of once again have been defeated by Claude. I mean, they are just taking up as much market share as possible. And, this is why they added $6 billion of revenue in 1 month. I mean, this is unheard of. And if they do that again in March, which we'll probably get those numbers in the next couple of weeks, they're going to go from 19 billion to 25 billion in ARR, which is absolutely crazy. So once again, the token generation thesis around AI does not look like it's slowing down. You're getting new use cases every single day on those token opportunities continuing to accelerate, which is ultimately super bullish for AI. Speaking of AI and what's also super bullish, Elon. So remember yesterday we talked about Elon and the Terafab trying to essentially replicate ASML, Micron, NVIDIA, Amkor, all of those in one. Well, you got a new story today. Tesla's Terafab has launched a talent war in Taiwan via job postings, seeking senior chip experts. With over 10 years of experience, the media is reporting, and its 2-nanometer fab plan directly is aimed at TSMC. I forgot to mention they also would be trying to challenge TSMC with this Terafab. Chip engineers are already in short supply in Taiwan. Like nearly everything chip-related, and industry insiders worry the Musk halo effect will draw local talent. The article goes on to talk about how they are offering 3 times the annual salary of a TSMC engineer or chip engineer, which already is a pretty expensive salary. Elon is ready to pay a lot more. So, I mean, if you are going to see more and more momentum in regards to this whole terafab that's being built for a terawatt, which is 1,000 gigawatts of compute, then obviously Elon will be continuing to try to get more momentum. Also, we had a headline that came out this morning. Elon announces that Tesla and SpaceX will jointly build that plant in Texas. And Musk aims for the plant to produce, again, 1 terawatt of computing power annually, 2x the current US capacity. So now you have a timeline on it that he's trying to do this annually versus, just in 10 years. It's probably going to take 10 years to be able to do it annually, but it's just a lot of compute. It's just a lot of compute. Also, speaking of this war, I don't think this is linked to the war at all, but unfortunately we had this happen yesterday. A Texas oil refinery was hit, as you can see right here on the video. This happened like at 7 p.m. yesterday. I'm pretty sure this has nothing to do. Iran didn't bomb a Texas oil refinery. If they did, I think there would be some issues. But just like the airplane thing that happened with the Air Canada flight at JFK, I think that was at LaGuardia. They're not really linked to the war, but they are unfortunate that these things are happening. What is the exact update on this? Because I looked at this a little bit last night. I don't think it was. I mean, something definitely happened. I struggle to say hit, but it might not necessarily be hit. Let's see if we can get some actual. It says following reports of an explosion, massive explosion at the Valero oil refinery in Port Arthur. Okay, so the official headline is large oil refinery explosion near Texas forced residents into shelter. So yeah, I wouldn't say this is hit. The videos of this are crazy. I'm assuming there's going to be a lot of investigation on if this actually was an explosion or if maybe this did get hit and they're trying to not necessarily reveal that right now. I kind of doubt it got hit by anything from Iran. I mean, being able to target a refinery in Texas is not necessarily easy. The U.S. would definitely not want to admit if it was Iran because that would be a sign of weakness. But yeah, that is not the best to see that happen. And, when we talk about, the United States and oil refineries, we did get a couple charts yesterday from the Trump administration. They posted this. We got 2 minutes until the market opens. And, Trump is trying to remind everybody, hey, guys, we have tons and tons of oil and we are producing way more oil than anyone else. This was one of the charts they put out yesterday. It's not good to see, obviously, Texas get disrupted like that. But this is what Trump posted yesterday. He put his name on the chart, obviously, to show that this is because of Trump. But we're producing 22.8 million barrels per day, which is more than Saudi Arabia and oil combined. So we definitely have a lot of oil. He's not wrong about that. It's just given all the amount of disruptions in the oil markets, it's still not enough to be able to navigate, higher energy prices as we are back above $90. All right, last update, macro, before we get into the market open. I thought this chart was extremely interesting. Retail investors are not buying single stocks as much as they used to. Take a look at this chart. This is from Citibank. Retail trading activity as a total percentage of single stock volumes is now the lowest since January 2018. So even retail has had enough of this Iranian war, and you've probably noticed it yourself if you haven't been trading as aggressively or buying single stocks. I mean, obviously retail is still in the market. They've not gone net bearish or net short, even though the short premiums have started to rise. But this is and this is not bullish for Robinhood, by the way. I mean, obviously you want retail to be trading. So I think given the macro environment, given the level of uncertainty, given people just generally being afraid of what's going to happen in the future, you're having retail. We have no more money. Yeah. Also, it's hard to buy the dip when the dip keeps dipping and you don't have any more money. That could be creating a little bit more pain for the overall excitement around retail being in the markets. All right, here we go. Thank you, everybody, for being here. It is Tuesday, March 24th, 9:30 a.m. The stock market is once again open. All right, wake your ass up. Let's get into it. S&P 500, 651. 651 is what you've got. We are down 0.7%. That's definitely a significant amount of decline from where we were yesterday, but we are indeed down. IREM, that's at 41.78. That's down 1%. Ethereum's at 2,151. Grab goes green by 1%. Nebius goes green by 3%. They got an upgrade by Bank of America to $150. CRWV got an upgrade to $100. That's up 2.6%. Apollo, KKR, and Blackstone are all down 3% of the day as more redemptions get withheld from the private credit names. And so you're seeing a little bit more pain there. Palantir goes green. Palantir got a really nice upgrade as well yesterday, 162. We'll talk about that in a second. 162.40, now back down to 160, 160. But it was one of the best sell-side reports I have ever read in my life on a company. And there's a couple quotes from it that are just incredibly important to read. So we'll get into that in a second. Bloom Energy, that's up 1.2%. It was down 5% yesterday. Reddit is down 0.5%. Satellogic is down 2%. That was up 40% yesterday. Amazon, which owns a lot of Anthropic, that is down. VG, are we up? VG is up, back to 17. VG up 7% on the day. The VG CEO was on CNBC yesterday. We'll take a listen to that in a bit. I did not get to watch that yet, but he definitely painted a pretty bullish picture from the headlines I saw around the entire industry of natural gas. IBM, that's down 1.3. Chevron's up. Exxon is up. SolarEdge is up. Enphase is down. Duolingo is down. Where is Apple? Apple is 251. That's flat. FICO got hit 5% yesterday. FICO down another 4% today. Again, this is why I'm saying Stripe is not worth $160 billion. Like, I know Stripe is not literally like FICO, but it's in that same bucket of finance. And if all the finance names are getting destroyed, including the banks, then I don't know how some of those private names can withhold that momentum. FICO, they're down another 5%, $24 billion market cap now. Nebius, 117. CRWV, 83. Where is Lemonade? That was up 7% yesterday. That's down 1% today. SAP is down 3.3% on the day. How about Figma? That was down yesterday. That's down again, 3.66. Figma's reminding me of Duolingo. Great company, but the AI narrative of commoditized by the hyperscalers, whether it's Apple AirPods for Duolingo or Google Stitch for Figma, even though I think Figma has more of a moat than Duolingo, quite frankly, just because they're so embedded in the enterprise. It's hurting them as that stock is down 3%. NVIDIA just went green, 175.80. What about Meta? Did we go green? Meta is down below 600 again. So Meta losing their gains from yesterday. SoFi below 17 again. Path is probably dumping because of Claude's new product. It's not literally RPA, but one could argue it could be implemented into the enterprise as a robotic processing automation tool. And it makes sense why Path is probably getting hit from that as well. AAOI got a big purchase order yesterday. That's why that stock's up 6.5%. They also got an upgrade to 150, I think, from Bank of America. It's one of these firms that came out this morning and said 150 as they see the photonics bottleneck continuing to be strong. So that was a good upgrade. They got a good purchase order this morning. I think it was worth $53 million, and that's why that stock getting some momentum. I am surprised that the memory names are not catching a bid. It's been a week since the earnings. VG now 8% on the day, and Micron is trading at a 2026 forward PE of 2.9, which they're growing EPS 35%. There's not many companies that are growing 35% year over year and trading at under 3 times earnings, but I don't know. The market's just not ready to give them some love again. Grab right there, 370. That's up 2.3% of the day. Bitcoin, 70.70. Palantir goes green, but still holding 160. OSS, that is up 3%. Is Fubo getting a move? Fubo is down. Oh, Fubo must have reverse split, right? Because the stock used to be at $1. Yeah, it looks like they reverse split. Now it's at 12.83. Oh, yeah, EWY, Korea. is down 4%. SK Hynix, folks, you'll be able to buy it pretty soon on Robinhood. They are raising $8 billion to go public in the United States via the ADRs, which is how you can buy Alibaba. You're buying the American Depository Representative shares of Alibaba. You're not actually buying Alibaba stock, but those ADRs. And so you're going to be able to do that soon with SK Hynix, I think in the coming weeks, which is probably going to bring a lot more demand to that stock. But they are raising more money, and that's why EWI is down 3.6% of the day. Samsung was also down as well. Yes, currently you can buy it on IBKR, but there are more retail brokerages that don't offer it. And it seems like they will be able to offer it soon. S&P getting a little bit of a rebound. It was down more than half. Now it's only down 0.4. So you're getting a little bit of excitement there. Tessie 383, that goes green, which is nice. AMD is also green. So AMD, Tesla, SanDisk, VG, kind of the big movers of the day right now. NVIDIA still struggling to go green. IREN's also up 0.5%. CoreWeave's up 2%. Nebius up 2%. Grabs up 3.7%. Salesforce down 3%. Software once again 82.70. We bottomed at 76 on February 24th on IGV. We are not that far away. We're like $6 away. So it would be quite interesting if we get back there again. Zeta down 1.6. Down 1.6. GameStop does have earnings today. GameStop does have earnings today. We will not have Technical Tuesday today. It'll be Technical Wednesday. We'll have Chris on today. We'll talk more about the macro on the close. Jason has a doctor's appointment today, so he will be here tomorrow, and we will do Technical Wednesday. Microsoft, did we lose 380? We did indeed. Wow. When's the last time we were below 380? February 24th. Well, actually, no, I'm wrong. Was it March 20th? Yeah. Okay. It was March 20th. It was a quick bounce before that, February 24th. So basically in the past month, we had one day of below 380. But realistically, we fell below 380 about a month ago. And now we are back there. 378. 378. Planet Labs is up. Your space names continue to get a bid. Dude, Planet Labs, what a stock. This thing has been on fire. Rocket Labs also going green. How much is Planet Labs up year to date? It is up 76%. In the past month, it's up 50%. This one has been an absolute superstar. ASTS right there, 88.76. VG, 10% on the day. Okay, so we've seen this happen many times. VG pumps during the market open. Oil prices are up. Let's see if Trump says something that gets everyone to calm down, and then VG will go back to 15. The S&P will go green. Maybe we don't see that today, but if we do, that would be the playbook. The VIX right here is up 3% of the day. That's also helping VG. The VG and VIX basically move together at this point. Oxy's up. Chevron. I mean, for traders, this has got to be the greatest thing ever. Like, you can almost time exactly when this thing goes up and this thing goes down. And for investors, you get to hold on to a little bit of momentum. Yeah, I think selling VG calls here is not that crazy. I mean, realistically, unless oil continues to spike, which it could, but if it doesn't, the call premium should be relatively decent, and it's literally staying within a range. But if it wants to break out, if we get higher oil prices, VG is going to break out. I mean, it's pretty obvious now that it has the momentum behind it if oil prices, natural gas prices continue to follow into the uptrend. ServiceNow back down to 106. This thing went from 125 to 106. Cannot catch a bid. Adobe down 3%. Adobe, I think this is the worst Adobe's been. This is the worst. Yes, this is the worst Adobe has been. I don't think Adobe has seen 240 this whole year. Yeah, guys, if we lose 240, we are officially going below 240. We're going to have a 230 handle for the first time all year. We are literally at a 52-week low on Adobe at the moment. Micron's about to lose 400. It's at 401. That one continues to be a bit ugly. Jason said if we don't get a daily close above the S&P on 652, we're cooked. I agree with him. That is his counter trend bounce. And we are currently below 652.50. So I 1000% agree. We have to at least close above that, which we did yesterday, but very barely. And, you would think we would close way up. We were at 660 at one point. So the fact that we came all the way down was not encouraging. But maybe today we can kind of break back above that. Apple goes green. Apple goes green. Oh, yes, I forgot. Burry's in Adobe. Burry told everybody to sell Palantir and charged you $400 a year to listen to how he can explain why you should sell Palantir. and instead go long Adobe. So, that's the route Burry took this year when it comes to analyzing these software names. S&P 651, Adobe 239. 239. Crude now 92.46. All right, high of day on the crude. High of day on the crude. This was the update yesterday on Palantir, which again, you just don't read sell side reports like this because, the sell side, they don't want to get overly bullish on certain things, especially when they're, when stocks are trading at aggressive valuations. With Palantir, even after the drawdown, is still trading at a pretty aggressive valuation. Here's what they said. We have all but given up on other public software companies being able to replicate Palantir's success. This is from D.A. Davidson. And then, this was the craziest part. They said, another idea for investors that want to participate in all this winning and are unable to buy Palantir due to valuation, we propose a basket of publicly announced, publicly traded companies that are using Palantir's customers, or that are using Palantir's software that are Palantir customers. And he mentioned CMI, LEU, Centrus Energy, Lumen Technologies, Voyager, LHX. I've never seen that before. I've never seen a sell side say, hey, if you don't like the valuation on Palantir, the software is so freaking good that we have faith in a bunch of random companies that we don't even cover. And we think that basket of companies that are using their software will outperform the market because of how valuable the software is. I mean, that's crazy. Like, genuinely, that's freaking crazy. So definitely got a good upgrade yesterday. Obviously, the valuation is still up there, but the valuation is up there for a reason. A lot of people are starting to recognize the value of them. VG up 8%. Micron loses 400. Micron loses 400, 395. That's down to now the S&P is feeling it. Let's see if we lose 650. Let's see if we lose 650. 650.85. That's down 0.7%. Adobe is getting wrecked. 239. I don't know why software is getting. It's the Claude thing, right? It's the freaking Claude thing. That's got to be the reason. Now, I don't think the product they announced is literally competitive with Salesforce, ServiceNow, or Adobe, but I think the technology they showed off theoretically could get the market to think this could do a bunch of the different workflows that's embedded within these larger software companies. And maybe that's why you're seeing this Anthropic sell-off once again. IGV, 81.64. Let's see if it loses 80 for the first time in about a month, where that theoretically could happen. Let's look at the other software names. Palantir is also getting hit in the software sell-off. Same thing with Zeta and a bunch of these other guys. They are all red. Look at that. All of them. Snowflake, Datadog, Palantir, Cloudflare, CrowdStrike, Zscaler, Twilio, GitLab, Mongo. And they're down bad, bro. Atlassian's down 8. Salesforce is down 4. Adobe's down 4. ServiceNow's down 5. CrowdStrike's down 5. It's not like a 1 or 2% thing. They're actually getting hit pretty hard here. Datadog's down 5. So all of them you're seeing get hit. Palantir, unfortunately, getting hit with the software names as well. It was up yesterday when software was up, and Palantir relative to the other software names is not down as much year to date, but it's still in that same bucket where it's going to get hit. SoFi's down 2, S&P 650. Let's see if we lose 650. Disney's down, Netflix is down. AMD somehow holding on to green by a thread, literally by 10 cents. DraftKings is down, Nike slightly up on the day. PMI, we're going to get in 3 minutes. I don't know how much it's going to affect the markets unless PMI is as bad as PPI was last week. But we will get PMI in about 3 minutes. We're looking for 50.5 on composite, 50.2 on manufacturing, 50.4 on services. That is what we are looking for when it comes to PMI. We should get that in 2 minutes. MicroStrategy, that's up a little on the day. Crude's at 92.45. Israeli military says it targeted fuel stations across Lebanon that fund activities of Hezbollah. Qatar Energy declares a force majeure on LNG contracts with Italy, Belgium, South Korea, and China. All right, so that means less oil will be exported to those places. AMD now goes red. So if you sold the RIP yesterday or you sold covered calls yesterday, you're doing okay. Or at least you're benefiting from the volatility to the downside. If you bought the RIP yesterday, it seems like everything is pretty much below where it was yesterday, except Tesla. Tesla hasn't fully. Where did Tesla close at yesterday? Tesla got to 385. Yeah, so Tesla's relatively in that same price. But once again, it continues to be you sell the RIP and buy the dip. You don't aggressively buy the dip, and you don't aggressively sell the rip, because obviously it could keep ripping and it could keep dipping, but you kind of play the motion of the range, which has been the choppy nature of this market. S&P 650.85. 650.85. PMI is today. We should get in about a minute. We'll see what we get. PMI doesn't really affect the markets that much. I mean, maybe because everyone has an eye on the macro data, given the PPI we got yesterday, it might, but maybe you'll see a candle up or down for a hot second. But I think the war ending is the biggest thing that's going to affect the market. By the way, take a look at the options markets yesterday. Take a look at the top 20 stocks that were traded. SMCI was number 6. You had Tesla, NVIDIA, Apple, Microsoft, Amazon. Then you had SMCI. Palantir was number 7. Micron's up there. Meta, SoFi, AMD, Intel, Google, Broadcom, Ondas, Netflix, MicroStrategy, Iran, TeraWulf, and then Robinhood. So you have some of these names that have had a lot of volatility, like an SMCI. SMCI flat on the day. Ondas was 11 in the pre-market. Ondas still 11, so it's up 1% on the day. Experiencing a little bit more of that pain. All right, let's see. PMI, we should be getting it right now. What do we got? Okay, here are the numbers for PMI. 51.4, that's a beat on global. Manufacturing, 52.4, that's a beat. And then services, 51.1 versus 50.4, that's a beat. That is a beat across the board, triple beat on services, manufacturing, and global composite. That should be bullish. Do we get a green candle? S&P, not really, kind of, little bit. It's about 20 cents of green. It's technically bearish because it means inflation concerns are still going to rise. But, if oil prices calm down, then it ends up becoming bullish, because if we don't have inflationary concerns, then it means the economy is expanding, which is good. But, you're kind of in that good news is bad news is good news mentality, which I hated being in all of 2023 and all of 2024. But technically, you needed bad news so that inflation would come down. And every time you had good news, it's good. But you also know that inflation is going to accelerate. And if the Fed only cares about inflation, which multiple Fed presidents came out yesterday, Goolsbee and Mary Daly coming out and basically saying, we are pretty concerned that inflation could accelerate with oil prices, and we can't make a decision until we understand the extent of those impacts. Rocket Lab down 2%. Planet Labs, it was up 7. Now it's only up 2. South Korea down 4. They are really putting a number on Micron right here. Wow, 392. This thing was at 470 last Wednesday, folks. Unfortunately, if you bought it before the dip or bought it before the earnings, which I can't even blame people that took a risk on it, you put up the best numbers we've seen in a while, but just was not able to hold on. 10-year spiking again, 4.4. Also, the 20-year is now back at 5%, which is not good. It's really not good. So bond yields, I think, are the number one thing to pay attention to. And unfortunately, they are not calming down. They kind of calmed down yesterday when Trump tweeted that things would be ending soon, but we are not there yet. Also, I thought this stat was really interesting. Job postings on Indeed, which is one of the biggest job aggregators in the world, fell 5% in the week year over year, ending March 13th. The lowest since October 2025. Postings have declined 36% since April of 2022, and we are now at February 2021 levels on job postings on Indeed, which, again, shows that the private sector is not really doing the best when it comes to the labor market. And if we start to see jobless claims start to spike, we'll get some of that data on Thursday with the initial jobless claims. That would be a bit more evidence of that. S&P 651. But the Fed might like that, because that means inflation might come down. So far, we have technically added 0 jobs this year. That is correct. And we lost 1 million jobs in 2025. So labor market, not necessarily the best. Micron is still up 37% year to date. That is fair. I should mention that every time, that Micron is still up a lot this year. It's just those earnings, you would think they would be recognized. And no, the Street just didn't care. The Street did not care. So that stock's still up for the year, but down since earnings. SoFi down 3, Meta down 2, SAP down 4, Lumentum and Coherent getting a bid right here. So some of your photonics plays is getting some love. Red Cat was down 14%. Last Friday. That's back up. It was up 10% yesterday as well. Do you have an opinion on Celsius? So the reason Celsius is down is because Costco's launching a competitor energy brand called Kirkland Energy. I have not tried it. The obvious advantage they have is distribution, because Costco has a ton of shelf space, but I mean, this is where as a Celsius bull, you have to put your quality of drink up against Costco's. And I would imagine, although Costco can make some really good knockoffs, if you believe in, Celsius as a drink, then people are not going to switch. And the brand itself, right? So I think it's kind of silly that it's down on that, but that seems to be the reason. Amazon expanding Zoox robotaxi to Austin and Miami. All right, so you're seeing Amazon and Zoox continue to get momentum. I still haven't tried a Zoox. I needed to try it in Vegas. They're also in San Jose. We saw it there last week, but I haven't tried it yet. Amazon down 1.63% on the day. Amazon says it already has served 350,000 riders and has about 500,000 people on their wait list. Seeing the robotaxi market get incredibly competitive. I mean, Jensen's going after it, Amazon, Waymo, Tesla, obviously. And a lot of people thinking this is going to be a pretty big market. Kirkland is a serious threat. Look, it might be. The thing about Celsius is I really never liked how Celsius tasted. So, I actually, I don't drink Red Bull all the time, but when I have a Red Bull, I really do enjoy how Red Bull tastes. Some people think it's disgusting. Red Bulls to me taste like a nice ice cold Red Bull. It tastes really good. And I don't think a Kirkland Energy would be able to replicate that. But if a Kirkland Energy tasted exactly the same for a less price, then, I might buy that. So I wonder, can Kirkland replicate the feeling that people get when they drink Celsius for a cheaper price? Because then it's real competition. But until then, you're probably going to stay loyal to the brand that you've been drinking. SanDisk down 3%, back to the 680s. This thing was 770 last week. And then UiPath is down 7%. Circle is, wow, why is Circle down 6%? That's not because of Bitcoin. That's because of something else, because it doesn't really trade with Bitcoin. Maybe we have some updates on the Clarity Act. Trump did say he's not signing anything until we sign the Voting Act, so that's an obvious headwind. Okay, I'm seeing a headline right here. A revised draft of the Clarity Act has been revealed as per CoinDesk. Rewards tied to balances would not be allowed. Lawmakers aim to avoid similarities with bank deposits. The move reflects pressure from the banking sector. Debate around the stablecoin utility continues to intensify. Maybe that's potentially the reason this leaked draft as per CoinDesk, which is one of the biggest crypto media publications, is causing Circle to get hit. That's down 7.3%. on the day. That is bullish. Visa, MasterCard, and American Express. That's correct. Are those stocks up today? They're not up, but that's definitely bullish for those names. American Express is Berkshire's, I think, third largest holding. That stock is down 20% this year. Visa's down 12% this year. MasterCard is down 12% this year. Let's get an update on the stock draft. We haven't checked it in about a week. It's going to be over in a couple months. It'll be the full year. I am up 12%. Matt's up 22. Tanner is up 2. Steve is down 2. Chris is down 5. Chris's biggest loser is Novo. My biggest loser is Duolingo. Matt's biggest loser is Dutch Bros. Tanner's biggest loser is Trade Desk. And Steve's biggest loser is Hims and MicroStrategy. It looks like Matt's going to, as long as Rocket Lab and ASTS hold up, Matt's going to come away as the winner of this, which ironically might coincide with the SpaceX IPO in June. So we're going to see how the space names react to that. Zeta down 4.5%. Shift4 is ripping. I think there was a headline on these guys this morning. This is one of the only fintechs that's green. We know there's been a ton of insider buying. Dell also green on the day. The challenge started June of 2025. So it was a year-long challenge right here. What's the headline on Shift4? There's definitely a headline today. Cactus, if you have it, you can send it again because I think I saw something with it. That's up. Dell, which beat earnings by $17 billion 2 weeks ago. Dell is up another 1%, taking the business from SMCI potentially. Oracle goes down. All right, so that's weird. Your neoclouds officially go red. Oracle also being seen as a software name. CoreWeave down 1% as well. XLE, there you go. Energy continues to catch the bid. 60.7. Is that an all-time high? Not an all-time high, but that's a 52-week high, I think, for energy. Yeah, 52-week high for energy. XLE, that's your ETF, up 33% this year. If you were long energy instead of tech this year, you're up 30%. Tech is down 10%. Quite incredible, but that has been the story so far. Rivian is also up 0.5% on the day. Why is SMCI green? Well, I mean, it is down 40%. At some point, there has to be a bottom, right? I don't know if this is the bottom, but that might be what you're seeing. The average price of diesel in the U.S. has reached $5.35 a gallon and is less than 50 cents away from setting a new all-time record at $5.83. The last time we hit that was June of 2022. June of 2022. All right. Again, I don't think Trump wants to see those headlines. It is a matter of time until he comes out once again and tries to calm the markets. I mean, he has to say something today, right? Like, this 10-year is on its way to 4.5. Like, there's no way Besant's not knocking on his door and saying, hey, put out a tweet or say something, calm down the credit markets. Like, we can out of the 10-year go to 5%. Like, because once it gets up there, it's hard to bring it back. It's not that easy. But if it's like kind of teeter-tottering, you could say something to calm people down. Amazon 207. I mean, this is just absolutely crazy. This doesn't help Trump's message on affordability. Yeah, and he knows that, right? Like, which is why I think he wants to get out of this. Again, the argument he's painting to the American people, this is what Rubio said, Besant said, is that go through, short-term pain for long-term gain. 50 days of higher gas prices for 50 years of safety from an Iranian nuclear facility being structured in a way that could actually target the United States. It's just a question of, are we making progress on that? And do the American people actually believe that that's enough to deal with the short-term pain? Tesla right there, 382. Ondas still holding on to about a 2% move on the day. Microsoft continuing to, wow, dude. What? I mean, I get the Claude thing came out today, but goodness, software, like, is this going to happen for the next 5 years? Every time there's an AI update from Anthropic, the software name is just IGV, low of the day, 3.5%. At some point, the market's got to believe that this is not going to be commoditized, or like take these stocks down, 20, 30% from here and get the Band-Aid off and say, all right, software is dead. But they're not willing to completely wreck it. And they're also not willing to let it hold a bid. Now, Salesforce did get ready to buy $25 billion worth of stock. They took out debt to buy $50 billion of stock. They're getting ready to buy $25 billion as the buyback period. The corporate buyback period is still intact. And I think in the next 2 weeks, corporate buybacks will open up. So you're going to see a lot of buying back of stock, most likely. But at this point, I don't know if buybacks are going to be helping to change the narrative on these names. Adobe still down 3%. Is Palantir getting hit? Palantir getting hit, 154.70. That's down 3.8%. Where is Hoodie? Hoodie getting hit, 70.54. That is down. Rocket Lab down 2%. Oscar, by the way, has been wrecked. This thing back in the 12s as the debate over subsidies continue to create more pain. U.S. business activity growth slowed to an 11-month low. A survey price suggested that price gouging for consumer price inflation would accelerate, back to 4%, hinting at a growing risk of U.S. moving to stagflation. I think you're going to see a lot more questions around stagflation if growth potentially slows down because of lack of consumer demand, but inflation goes up because of oil prices. That is the definition of a stagflationary environment. This is from S&P Global that put out this headline. My covered calls from yesterday are printing. Well, at least that's one thing that's doing well. That has literally been the saving grace every single week, is like, all right, you at least know this thing. And again, it doesn't feel like it's working when everything just keeps going down. But we don't keep going down. We go down enough to then rebound a little bit. And we don't rebound all the way back to where we were even a week ago, but we rebound enough for like the pain to have a floor to it. And then we get teased with a really good green day, and then we go back down, and then we go back up. But like, that is where you play the sort of range game on how the markets are reacting right now. MicroStrategy is still green. PMI again was better than expected. Seeing the software name still down right here. IGV getting hit. VIX is up 5%. I wonder if the VIX ends up. We are not at VIX 30, but we're close. We're at 27. VIX 30 usually is the buy signal every time. I wonder if we get there today. Fear and greed. Are we at 15? We are at 15 exactly on fear and greed. We were at 17 yesterday. So it is getting a little bit more fearful from that index. I'm still trying to get an update on what happened to that oil refinery in Texas. I want to see if there's any coverage on that, because that is very suspicious, dude, that an oil refinery just explodes as per the official headline. So we'll try to see if there's any updates on that and why that's playing out. Bahrain Defense Force says UAE serviceman was killed while performing duty during the Iranian attacks. Oh, the UAE is not going to be happy about that. The UAE is not going to be happy about that when you have other country citizens die on different air bases. Quite frankly, those countries, the number one thing they want to do is get revenge as soon as that happens. And the United States is no stranger to that. I mean, it's literally become a proxy with 8 different countries being involved inside of the Middle East, which obviously is not good for oil prices. What is up with SAS? It seems like the Claude new product, which is basically a remote desktop version of being able to operate and have an agent do a bunch of things on your desktop if you give it all the permissions when you are not there with it, which got 40 million views over the past 12 hours, is, I guess, killing software again. Dell goes red. Dell was green. It was at 156, now back at 149. This is not a range game. It's a bear market. Well, again, a bear market is technically a 20% correction on the S&P. Individual stocks are in a bear market, like Microsoft, but we have not seen an actual bear market on the S&P. We are seeing a loss of the moving average and then a reclaim of the average and then a loss of the average. Like, it seems more choppy than bearish. Now, could it turn bearish? Yeah, I mean, there's a myriad of catalysts that could probably flip this upside down. It's not officially a bear yet. Did the Clarity Act not pass? No, the Clarity Act, no acts have passed in this country and will pass in this country as per the president until the Voting Act bill gets passed, the Save America Act. The Clarity Act is being negotiated in Congress right now as Microsoft hits the low of the day, 375. And there was a leak draft from CoinDesk today explaining that, stablecoins would not get all the same rewards as banks are getting, which is not bullish for the crypto companies, which is why Brian Armstrong has not been the happiest about it. But that thing's not getting passed anytime soon. I mean, people were thinking by mid-April it would get passed. But if Trump is right that we're not going to freaking pass anything until we pass the Voting Act, which I don't know how he's going to live up to that. Dude, the Democrats are not voting for that. They're just not. They put in all this stuff about transgender stuff and men and women's sports and all this. Like, the Democrats are just not voting for a bloated bill like that. So I think we're at a standstill until we figure out how to get any level of that legislation passed. Tesla right there at 384. By the way, guys, TSA is bad. TSA is bad in this country. I have seen numerous videos over the past 24 hours of JFK and LaGuardia and Dallas-Fort Worth. I mean, it's bad. Like, it's just not good. I mean, take a look at this. This is JFK yesterday. This is insanity. This is insane. Like, if you have a flight, in domestic, you have to be there 4 hours early, especially if it's at a centralized location. Look at this. This is just to get into security. And pre-check is not even available in certain airports anymore. I mean, this is insane. This is absolutely insane. What, did I say LaGuardia wrong? It's LaGuardia. How do you say the freaking airport? It's freaking... Oh, hold on. There's a U in this shit. Why is there a U in this? Hold on.
LaGuardia.
Oh. Whatever. It's a freaking airport, okay? Everyone goes to JFK anyway. No one even freaking uses LaGuardia or whatever. The point is, it's bad. It's bad, okay? If you're going to the LA meetup this weekend, please get to the airport on time. because of that. I'm not trolling. I've never been to the airport. I think I've been there once, like in 2004 or something. I don't really go to that part of New York. VG right there, that's up 9%. I love him. It's confidence before he gets it wrong every time. Check ASML. Are we up on ASML? We are up about 1%. Again, lithography is getting in a lot of attention now after Elon mentioned that they're going to be producing their own lithography machines as well. I think there was another headline on EUV machines, which is helping ASML, but that is getting more attention. That's up 1% as well. We know why you did debate and not the spelling bee. That is correct. You know I did debate, not the spelling bee. Oh yeah, this is another reason why ASML is up. SK Hynix plans to spend $8 billion on cutting-edge chip-making tools from ASML. That was the headline I was looking for this morning around SK Hynix. So that is another massively bullish statement for ASML. Politico just now, GOP senators are pitching a party line bill focused on ICE and portions of the Save America Act. Senate Majority Leader John Thune said in an interview Monday night that a brewing Homeland Security spending deal has lent new momentum to the push for another party line bill. That bill would fund immigration enforcement and potentially much more, including TSA. Okay, so, I mean, maybe we're going to get that bill. They're going to have to pass that through reconciliation, though, because the Democrats are not going to vote for so reconciliation is when Congress comes together and says there is a budgetary maneuver that we can use. This is how they got the CHIPS Act passed back in 2021, because they only had 51 votes to get not a majority of Congress to vote for something and still make it the law. And they're going to make the argument that you need your voter ID because of the funding that the federal government provides to states around voting as like a practice in democracy would warrant that the federal government has the ability to force people to have voter ID, which gets what Trump wants out of the way, but it also potentially brings in DHS funding, TSA funding, which is partly what the Democrats want, but they just don't want to vote for it to give Trump a victory. So that might be the way this gets resolved. It just might take some time to make it happen. So they're illegally passing it. It's not technically illegal. Reconciliation has been one of the ways that a split Congress has been able to still get legislation passed for the past 40 years. But I know it sounds illegal, but that's like the loophole in our governing process that allows bills to get passed without having a majority. But they're going to have to make a stretch to justify it's a budgetary thing for voting, which I don't know if they're going to be able to fully justify that. So time will tell. Where is the Dow today? The Dow was up 700 points yesterday. It is down 230 points today. As you're seeing the S&P, the Dow, all the major indices get a little bit more pain. Let's get an update right here on some of the macro data that we saw this morning. And we'll keep going from there.
Activity 1.8% in Q4. That was a revised number lower. It was only lower because GDP growth was lower in the fourth quarter, which we kind of knew about already. And that also meant unit labor costs, wages, basically, the cost that businesses have shot up because of that lower productivity. However, that's a volatile kind of number. We knew there was a shutdown in the fourth quarter. If you look overall and smooth it out of what we're getting on productivity, it's a really good story. So you can look basically at the year as a whole. So we saw basically 2.5% year-over-year increase in Q4. So for all of 2025, productivity increased 2.2%. from the prior year. And that's better than the 1.7% average rate that we've had over the last 20 years and better than the rate of the last decade of 1.9%. Evercore did a really deep dive into productivity. They say the best is still ahead because of AI. And here's a good chart. It really started during COVID. I mean, COVID was a positive productivity shock. Why? Because companies figured out how to do more with less, and they figured out how to, I mean, the digital trends were already in place, like cloud computing and everything like that, but it really benefited companies, which was, I think, a huge surprise as we all sort of went off.
Yeah, well, the productivity argument makes sense, and I think that's why we're also seeing PMI. PMI is beat for 5 weeks in a row. Tesla getting a high of day right here. And part of the reason I think PMI continues to beat is because you're seeing advanced gains in productivity, which is helping an economy expand. Again, you're above 50, you're expanding, you're below 50, you're declining. We are seeing above 50 across the board almost every time, whether it's ISM, PMI, services, manufacturing. Part of that is due to AI. Part of that is due to productivity. That's why the broader market is not absolutely collapsed. VG now high of day as well, 10.7% up on the day. But productivity is not going to lower oil prices. unless we become so productive from AI that instead of doing 22 million barrels a day, we can do 50 million barrels a day. That would definitely help lower oil prices, but I don't know if AI is that productive yet. The Shell CEO just come out and said disruption to spread to Europe from Asia next month. Exxon and Chevron CEOs also said the same thing yesterday. S&P at 653, getting a little bit more of a broader candle. Microsoft losing some steam right here, 374. It's the worst it's been in a month, down 2.21%. Again, Fubo did the reverse split. That's why that one's green. Apple did bounce above the 200-day moving average. The biggest update on Apple is that WWDC is coming out soon, and they will have a foldable phone either announced then or in September. I'm not going to lie. I think the foldable phone is going to be a flop, and maybe I'll be wrong about that, but I just don't think people are going to buy that, just like the Vision Pro was a flop. But I guess if Apple wants to make an iPad and an iPhone together as their next product, then that's going to be the next big thing. Nebius right here is at 115. It's kind of crazy. You know, we talk about NVIDIA being cyclical and the market not thinking about the durability of revenues in the GPU CapEx build out. Apple trades at a significant premium, almost double NVIDIA's forward earnings for like 70% less growth year over year. But the reason Apple gets double the premium is because the market thinks Apple will always be able to sell new products. So the durability and the quality of those revenues are not going to be cyclical like historically semiconductor names have been cyclical, which is kind of interesting because, you know, for the past couple of years, Apple has had revenues and they've been stable. They've definitely not grown though. I mean, they've literally grown like 2 to 3% a year. The last quarter where they grew 10% was the best quarter they've had in 4 years. So the market has more faith that NVIDIA will sell less GPUs or that they will peak in selling GPUs than they have faith that Apple will peak in selling products and services, iPhones, iPads, etc. Which goes to show how much the market loves Apple compared to these other names. And that's probably why, you know, most investors never sell Apple. They just hold on to it forever. VG, 1745. 1745 on the day. Amit, I think you're wrong. Foldable phones are next. Time will tell. We are going to see. I think it's going to be a flop. I don't think they're going to have a lot of people upgrade into these foldable phones. I mean, I hope I'm wrong because obviously that would just be better for Apple. That would be good for AI. They could probably, you know, sell more AI services. It overall sells more compute. It helps the overall industry, but I don't see it, dude. I really don't see it spreading. Nubank right there. That's down 1.4. Bitmine. That's down 1.5% as well. Shift 4 still up 5%. Getting some love today. We did have the CEO, Jared Isaacman, or he's not the CEO anymore, right? He's at NASA now, but he did buy a ton of stock a couple of weeks ago. Maybe you're correct about foldable phones, but not glasses. Glasses are definitely the future. I am still steadfast on my prediction that glasses are going to be a flop as well. I do not think the AI glasses are going to be the future. I really don't. I really don't. I don't see that happening. I just don't. And by the way, if it was happening, I think Apple would be focused on it a lot more. There's a reason Apple has not come out with Vision Pro 2. And I know they've been quote unquote working on it for 5 years, but like, when's the last time Apple released a product and didn't release the next version of it at least a year later? It's been 3 years since they released it in 2023. Like, I really don't think Apple feels confident enough. And if Apple doesn't feel confident enough, then you're trusting Zucks, which, look, I like Zucks, but he can sell ads. I don't know if he can sell consumer devices at the level where it would replace the current thing that we're using. Also, the tech's just not there yet, dude. No one wants to have a battery on their face. Like, there's so much stuff that's just not there yet for it to replace the iPhone. NVIDIA, 174. That's down. Palantir down 5%. Guys, I think that's software. That has to be software. I mean, at the end of the day, Palantir is the second highest holding in IGV. So if IGV gets sold off, unfortunately, Palantir and Microsoft would the number one holding in IGV is Microsoft. They are going to get sold off with it. IGV now 80.7. $4 away from the lows of February. SPY looks like it wants to break below 650, but it's just holding on to 651. Path is down 9%. Ugly. T1 Energy, that's down 4%. Where's EOSC? I think it's still stuck at $5. That had a 50% haircut a couple weeks ago. Bloom Energy is down below 3. Synopsys down 5. Synopsys just got that equity stake from Elliott yesterday. That getting dumped is kind of crazy as well. Zeta's down 7, which again, there's no reason for this to be down 7%. This is just software. Like nothing Claude introduced today is going to mess with what Zeta's doing, or Palantir, or Microsoft, to be honest. But at this point, the algos see Claude, they see new product, and they sell off IGV. I thought we were done with this game, though. Like, we went about 2 weeks without having to worry about this. Like, software rebounded pretty hard, and we are right back to the same game. Right back to the same game. FICO, dude, retail doesn't own FICO. Institutional investors own FICO. So the fact that FICO is now down year to date 40%, we're talking about FICO. This is one of the names that is not supposed to move that much. The fact that this thing is getting sold off just shows how bearish the institutions have become on the broader finance names that are out there. New York Times, Saudi Arabia's Prince MBS has been pushing Trump to continue the war against Iran. The U.S.-Israeli military campaign presents a historic opportunity to remake the Middle East. Iran poses a long-term threat to the Gulf that can only be eliminated by getting rid of the government. The U.S. should consider putting troops in Iran, to seize energy infrastructure and force the government out of power. You know, this is what was reported 3 weeks ago by the Washington Post. A lot of people said it was fake, but you're getting new reports that MBS actually wants this Iranian war to happen. Remember, Saudi Arabia has been the friendliest Middle Eastern country with Israel over the past 5 years. So although they disagree about religious things, they very much do agree that Iran is a bad faith actor. Who knows? Maybe MBS is seeing this as an opportunity. And not only does he have Israel support, now he has the big bad USA on his side. I mean, then it comes down to if Trump can be convinced by him to keep the war going, which obviously for all of us as investors, that's not something that would help equity prices right now. Hood below 70. There she goes, 69.80. So she bounced off 69.50 last time. Let's see if we get that bounce or if we don't. Came out of the dentist's office to blinding red. Yikes. You know, I haven't seen my dentist in a long time. I feel like I need to go visit her. It's been a minute. Hood's down, Palantir's down, Rocket Lab's down, Adobe's down, Salesforce still down, MicroStrategy still down. Dude, did we lose everything we got yesterday? No, not yet. S&P below 647 would be a complete reversal from yesterday. So we still have a couple bucks to go. United CEO is live at LaGuardia. Not LaGuardia. I don't know what moron doesn't know how to say one of the biggest airports in the world, but the United CEO is live from LaGuardia. Let's listen to what he has to say about the oil prices.
Dreamliner, a brand new Dreamliner with the new Polaris first seats. Scott Kirby, thank you for joining us here today. We're going to talk about this here in just a little bit. But first, I want to ask you about, and David set it up here, your comments about planning for higher oil for longer.
Yeah.
There are more than a few people who sit there and say, come on, $100 a barrel is your assumption through 27. Why?
You know, I think if you sort of start looking through what's happening in the Middle East and how long it's going to take to recover, even once the Straits of Hormuz are open, it seems like a reasonable assumption for us to make. And so we want to plan for something like that. We hope it's better, but the cost of planning for something like that is pretty small. We're going to do a little less flying than we otherwise would, willing to leave a little bit of demand on the table if oil prices are lower, but want to be prepared for a scenario where oil prices are higher for longer.
Yesterday, our Brian Sullivan was talking with the Energy Secretary, Chris Wright, and he basically said, look, I understand why he's got to do this as a business leader, but I think he's wrong.
Yeah.
What's your reaction to that?
I hope he's right, but we're going to prepare for it to peak higher this year and stay at a high level all the way through next year. And I hope he's right, but I'd much rather be prepared.
you're not seeing demand destruction yet in terms of customers who are willing to buy a ticket for a vacation or a business trip. Does that surprise you, given the questions that we're hearing about the broader macroeconomic uncertainties?
Yes and no. I mean, the demand is incredibly strong, but the reason, and in a way that would surprise you, but the reason I'm not surprised is because air travel actually from pre-pandemic to through 2025, prices were down 2%, inflation up 25%. And in that world, like, we're starting to recover. We've recovered about half of that to start this year. So it feels like there's more room to run on pricing to just catch up with inflation. And so those two forces are counterbalancing at the moment.
One of the things that, and you've had a couple of fare increases that have gone through. Do you foresee substantially higher fares this year from here, even after raising them?
I think fares will continue to go up in line with oil prices. I mean, in any business, but certainly in airlines, you've got to pass through the costs of the inputs, and that's our second biggest cost behind labor. And
all right, so United CEO saying oil prices have not affected demand yet, but he is implying that the consumer will have to make up some of the pain, which is inevitable. I mean, obviously, the company can't pay for literally everything here, which might end up hurting demand. I mean, time will tell. I guess we are. I mean, in a couple months, we'll be in tourism season in the summer and vacation season. We'll see if oil prices have had a meaningful impact on the airlines or if this war has ended by then. UAL is down 2% on the day. Delta flat on the day. Southwest is down 2%. American Airlines is also down 2%. JetBlue is down about 1%. Are we buying Microsoft? If you believe Microsoft, which now trades at under 20 times forward earnings, is a good deal, which historically Microsoft, there's a good chart on Microsoft. Let me see if I can find it that shows exactly when it's bounced, what multiple it's at when it bounces. And literally 380 was that price. I know we're below 380 right by now, but this should be the price. Yeah, I mean, the question becomes, is software actually declining the cash flows of Microsoft, or is the AI growth not as strong as we saw? And based on Azure momentum, I know they did 38% versus 39.2%, which is why the market got mad. I don't think that's a legit reason to get upset at Microsoft. $500 price target by Bank of America. We are reinstating coverage of Microsoft with a buy rating supported by durable multi-year growth. Microsoft's advantage lies in its ability to capitalize on AI across both infrastructure and applications. Its Azure cloud infrastructure platform provides the compute. And then they have AI workloads with software products around 365, Dynamics, and GitHub. 24 times calendar 27 PE, which is now lower based on when that report officially came out. I mean, dude, Microsoft, Amazon, NVIDIA, and Meta, and Google, they only grew earnings and their stocks only went down in Q1. So if we don't have a recession and this war comes to an end soon, I don't think they V-shape right up, but they, maybe put in a little bit of a floor. Where's Googs? Googs has been kind of silent for the past couple months, right? Google now below 300. And quite frankly, Google doesn't need to do much talking. I mean, this was the best Mac 7 last year. It was up 70%. It was up 100% from the lows at 150. But we haven't heard too much from Google outside of the earnings where they grew cloud 48%, which was absolutely crazy. Austin has the link for me. Okay, let me pull that up. Thank you for that, Austin. Planet Labs now red on the day. Kratos as well, down 7.75%. So the drone stocks getting hit. Oh yeah, no, this was the one I was looking for, Austin. Yeah, this is EV. This is not earnings, but this is EV over cash flows. I mean, look at that, bro. Last time it got here was July 22. It bumped up, and then January 20, and it bumped up. It's right back here. I think it's a little bit lower now based on the price action today. So there was a time for it to bump. It would be now. Circle down 14%, dude. Last time we looked at it, not 5 minutes ago, but 25 minutes ago, it was down 7. Wow. Okay, so again, CoinDesk reported a leaked version of a draft Clarity Act bill, and it's not really bullish for stablecoins. That is why I think that's the only headline I have for why the stock is getting destroyed right here. 14% on the day. It's not because of Bitcoin, that's for sure. But I guess that is not a friendly bill for the stablecoins. Tesla, though, holding green. It's one of the only Mac 7s to hold its green. Rocket Lab going down 5%, 64.73. The lowest Rocket Lab had this year, Rocket Lab was at 61.12. Rocket Lab and Hood are basically at their lows of the year, or close to their lows of the year, and we'll see if they get a bounce from there or if they break those lows. South Korea down 6% or 4%. AMD down 1%. S&P, though, is not really tanking. It bounced off 650. We haven't seen below 650. I do think is a bit psychological. You're not seeing that yet. Wow, is that true? The last time before Microsoft tapped the 200-day moving average was 2013, 2023, and then 2013. Goodness. That means it's been more than a decade since Microsoft really touched those levels, which would make you think something's either super broken or it's a buy. Where's the heat map? Amid, I just bought 40,000 Figma shares. Okay, that is a lot of Figma. 40,000 times what? You paid $21.80? It's 872,000 on some Figma. The fun thing about having a lot of money and being able to buy a lot of shares of one thing is that if that one thing goes up even $1, like if Figma goes to $22.80, you made $40,000. Like that's the really cool thing about having a lot of money. You can buy a lot of shares, and if it just goes up a little bit, you can make a lot of money. You know, this is why money makes more money. So now I am hoping that Figma bounces a couple bucks and you can make some freaking money. Also the opposite. Well, yes, obviously also if it goes down $1, you can lose $40,000, but still. I'm imagining you're thinking Figma's bottomed. I mean, is this the low for Figma? Yeah, this is the low for Figma all year, 21.75. We're at 21.85. If it loses 21.70, then we're making a new low. We are making a new low. What if it goes to 18? Well, then you will be down $120,000 as per the person who bought it. Look, that's the risk with individual stocks and Circle slow down 40%. I think that's why that chart that came out this morning about retail starting to spend less on individual stocks as a percentage of the overall market since 2018. I mean, I think retail's just getting annoyed, bro. Because look, at the end of the day, retail's also very simple. The reason we bought the dip back in April of 25 and institutions didn't is because we were just like, Trump's not serious about this. That simplicity also applies to very basic concepts around math. If I buy a stock and it keeps going down and I'm conditioned to keep buying the dip as a retail investor, this is what I've learned over the past 3 years, and it doesn't recover, then I probably stop buying that stock. I'm not speaking for all retail investors, but in general, you know, the average retail investor that is not literally obsessed with the markets, if they've been trained to just buy the dip and they keep buying the dip and the dip keeps dipping and they maybe run out of cash to buy the dip, they're just not going to be buying anymore. Like we saw what happened in 2022. Retail participation fell to a 10-year low because people, after being down, forget 20% for the year, by mid-year when people were down 10%, they were done. You know, if you were buying stocks at the time, you were a very rare breed that actually continued to invest. And we're not down 20% this year. We're not even down 10%, but individual stocks are down more than 30 to 40%. That is definitely going to hurt broader retail activity, which is some of the stuff that we're seeing right now. Amit, at this point, are we just waiting for April 9th? I'm happy you bring that up. Yesterday, an Israeli official reported that Washington, and again, they could be wrong, but this was their report, Washington has set April 9th as the day for a ceasefire. And I went to Gemini and I said, hey, when did Trump say it's a great time to buy? Coincidentally, it was April 9th, 2025. So if Trump is really playing with us and he is getting ready to go for a 2.0 great time to buy tweet, April 9th, 2026, it will be the most ironic thing ever. But yeah, it seems like we're waiting until April 9th. Maybe that's the case. Oh, April 9th is Doug's birthday as well. All right. Well, Doug, you got a hell of a gift last year. Dude, I remember where I was. I was just in my room. I remember working, but I remember like it was yesterday. I just looked at my phone on April 9th and I saw the S&P go up 10%. At the time I looked at it, it was probably up like 6 to 7%. By the end of the day, 10%. That's a yearly gain average in 4 hours. I mean, it was the craziest thing ever. And then we went 6 months of pure green until Trump tweeted about soybeans. I don't know if that happens again this year, but it would be kind of crazy if it were to replicate. Nebius goes green. Apple 252.74. That's also kind of green. The war isn't 100% in Trump's control, which the tariffs were. Yeah, and that's why it's kind of hard to imagine that we get that type of V-shape that people are expecting. Rick Scott was live. That's an interesting quote. Here's a clip of what Rick Scott had to say on the Iranian war. I mean, you have a lot of senators that aren't really that encouraging about how this is playing out, but he said, I hope for the best, and we'll see what happens.
Yesterday intimated that he thinks that whomever that the administration is negotiating with right now, he considers it to be de facto regime change. Do you know who it is? Is it the leader of the Iranian parliament? I looked at some of his history. It's not good. This gentleman.
No.
Is he someone that we could work with? A la what we saw in Venezuela? No?
Well, first off, Delcy Rodriguez is not the elected president of Venezuela. She was part of Maduro. She's a friend of Maduro. The only reason we have control over Venezuela is we control the oil money. And so we've got to have a transition to democracy there. With regard to Iran, we don't have somebody yet. Am I hopeful? Absolutely. But you know what's important to me is destroy all their ability to kill us. I mean, you can hope, for a regime change, but in the meantime, let's destroy their ability to kill more Americans, and then hope for the best, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah. See, I don't know if the American people are going to be happy with hope for the best and see what happens. That's. I mean, I think you're going to have a lot of people saying that can't be a strategy. Hope for the best and see what happens. I mean, not after we raise oil to 100 a barrel and tank the markets. But realistically, Circle, my goodness, down 16%. Realistically, what else is he going to say, right? I mean, that's the sad part of this entire situation. Hope for the best and see what happens. Goodness gracious. Even you could see in his voice, he's like, yeah, and before we get to the whole regime change stuff, let's just get rid of all their military. Even this guy is like, well, regime change is a little bit complicated to get done, so let's focus on something else before we do that first. You know what I think happened? I think, and I was reading an article about this yesterday, I think Trump thought when he originally striked the Ayatollah that this would be a 4 to 5 day operation like Venezuela was. Venezuela was like a 4 to 5 hour operation. And once they kill the Ayatollah, people would just revolt and then boom, it would be done. And like they would have, the ability to negotiate with a new administration and everything would change. And that just didn't happen. Like it just did not happen. But I feel like that's the mentality. I don't think they had the mentality that this would last many months. I think they had the mentality this would last a week. We're going to kill the guy. And then we're going to have a new regime that takes place and we're going to be able to negotiate. We're going to get them to stop their nuclear weapons program and just move on from there. And that didn't happen. Now, maybe they had a broader plan of this is going to take a long time, but that's obviously not what they've communicated over the past few weeks. So, now that we're stuck in it, the question is just how bad does it go? What is Circle doing, dude? I get that the Clarity Act bill was not the best, which is just a draft, by the way. It's not even an official bill, but 17% down is kind of crazy. Should we sell Rocket Lab puts? If you're again, I'll quote what TJ said yesterday. If you're selling a put on anything, especially when the market's red, you're getting good premium because you're selling it when the stock is going down, which means it's closer to your strike price. But you have to be okay with buying Rocket Lab. So if you're selling a $55 put, you have to ask yourself, do I think Rocket Lab at $55 is a good bang for my buck? And the biggest thing with put selling that gets people to hate it is because they end up getting assigned shares that they don't actually want. And so if you really don't want to own Hood at 65 or Rocket Lab at 55 or Zeta at 14 or SoFi at 15, don't sell the put. Because there will be a day where you absolutely do get assigned and you have to be willing to take those shares. I mean, a lot of people sold puts on Nebius last week when it was at 130. Now that it's down to your strike, you have to ask yourself, do I like Nebius at 114 or do I not? And if you do, you gladly take ownership. If not, then it begs the question, was that the right price to sell a put on? AMD right there at 201 on the day. Nebius also slightly green. CoreWeave slightly green. Orbs is up 18% on the day. That's getting some love. They do have a direct stake in OpenAI that changed last week. They put $80 million into it. So maybe it's an OpenAI proxy now as well. VIX now is up 2%. That's correct. I don't know why Shift 4 is up today. I still don't have a headline on these guys. 49.21 up 11%. There's got to be something outside of insider buying, but that's old news. Emerging DHS deal acceptable as per the White House officials. Okay, so that actually is why the VIX just came down, because if we do get a funding bill soon, even through reconciliation, if the White House is ready to sign it, then that would be good. It's due to the short borrow cost skyrocketing. Well, why did the short borrowing cost skyrocket overnight? Let me see. The price to borrow or to go short. Oh, wow. Is it like 70% to borrow to go short? Shift 4? Maybe I have that number wrong, but it feels like it's gone up substantially. But why did that happen overnight? SoFi down 3%. Can't be 70%. I feel like that's too much. Where is the short float on Shift 4? 71%. How is it 70? Why is it so expensive to borrow? The short float on Shift is 30%. But there's a lot of stocks that have a 30% short float that don't have a 71% borrowing rate. Corning, that's also up today. Well, that could squeeze the shorts too. I mean, they might just double down on it and pay the price, but that's not enough available shares to borrow. Okay, well, there you go. If you're in Shift 4, we did have a lot of insider buying as well. That could be helping. Coinbase also down 8%. I think on this Clarity Act. So Coin and Circle both getting hit pretty hard on this. White House official granted anonymity to discuss the private deliberations, noted that conversations are ongoing to finalize a deal with Democrats to fund DHS more than 5 weeks after funding lapsed. It would pair funding for most of the departments, save for ICE enforcement operations, with a new GOP reconciliation effort to pass the Left Behind funding plus parts of the GOP elections bill known as the Save America Act. All right, it looks like Trump might get his voter ID. It looks like Trump might end up getting it through reconciliation. And if that happens, then then the Clarity Act maybe has a better chance of being passed as well. What's going on with Palantir? Again, Palantir is a software name, second in the IGV index. IGV goes down algorithmically. Palantir, Microsoft, they just have to go down. IGV, little bounce off 80, but still 3.5% on the day as that's getting hit. The private equity names, private credit, little bounce from the lows at 10, but still down. Still down. What's going on with Grab? We talked about it this morning. They're buying back 400 million of stock, and Anthony Tan now has super voting rights, which to me, if you read between the lines, means there's another big acquisition happening, and that's why he wanted 75% of the voting rights. But again, I'm not going to get too excited. I mean, look, Grab's down a lot this year. They have a lot of work to do to recover the stock, so it's nice that it's up today, but realistically, we got to get back above 450 for us to see some more momentum. NVIDIA 174.34, SPY 652, and then Microsoft still down 2%. Shopify, Toby Lucht came out on a pod yesterday, and he said every company is being rebuilt from the bottom up. And if you are a company that is not using AI to rebuild every part of your internal culture / infrastructure to be rooted in AI, then you are not going to succeed. Which, quite frankly, gives me a lot of confidence about how Toby is addressing this new AI revolution. It's just Shopify is kind of expensive, bro. It's kind of expensive. Now, it's cheaper than when it was 150, but I feel like it's one of those names you kind of buy and hold on to forever. Celsius, is that still down? Yeah, Celsius, dude. Kirkland Energy, who would have thought? That's enough to take it down. That one's still getting hit. Circle as well, still getting hit. OSS, is that holding on? OSS down 5%. Has not lost the $5 range. Palantir also down 5%. Apple, ASML, and Oscar are green. Energy's green. Where's crude? Oracle's down. Crude is still up 4. So oil, VG, and a couple of the Max 7s go green. Everything else basically goes red. VG up 10% today. 1739. Bloom Energy is high beta. That's why that's down. I mean, I don't think there's anything fundamentally wrong with Bloom Energy, but it was at 70 in January. So, you know, holding on to a 50% gain is not the easiest here. Microsoft, very little bounce from 372 to 373.80. Very little bounce. Where's Costco? Is Costco getting any love because of the Kirkland Energy? Wow. Costco's up and Celsius is down because of Kirkland Energy. I think because of Kirkland. Maybe it's something else, but could be Kirkland. What else? What else do we have? Let's see the other main headlines across the board today. We talked about Saudi Arabia intercepting a drone. We talked about a variety of the different attacks last night. That created some more pain. You have the former defense secretary who was live yesterday. Here's what he had to say about the Iranian war.
In terms of the military objectives that General Dan Kane outlined, taking down the Navy, the Air Force, ballistic missiles, production, et cetera, degrading nuclear. They've made incredible progress on those things. I'm not hearing as much about the nuclear, but I think the military objectives are being accomplished. Now, of course, it's unclear what the political objectives are. The president has moved around and said different things at times, and so it's hard to see what the yardstick is when it comes to that. At the end of the day, it's going to be the political yardstick that determines, win, loss, how much of a victory, whatever the case may be. But what's interesting now, I think, is the Iranians, my sense is they survived the decapitation. They probably feel like they've taken 3 weeks of, America's and Israel's best, and they've survived. There's no signs of the regime fracturing. I mean, and I said that the other day in the hearing, and they feel emboldened, so much so they're making demands as to what would take to have a negotiated end to the conflict. So they are emboldened. I don't see them giving up anytime soon. And the president, meanwhile, is under a lot of pressure, increasing pressure because of the economics of all this and what it may mean politically going into the new year. So it's going to be, look, war is a contest of wills, and it's going to see who can withstand these various pressures longer. The military pressure being placed on Iran, absent any type of uprising or a collapse of the regime, versus, politics in the West, pressure due to economic pressure coming through gas and oil and every other byproduct that comes out of that 20% of that's being cut off from the Strait.
I'm just so tired, bro. Just like, I really didn't have war on my bingo card. Every time I was like, well, what's the bear case for the market? And there would be like 5% of you guys that are like, well, what about World War III? And most of us were like, all right, yeah, like obviously if we have World War III, that's a bear case, but we're not going to have World War III. Well, it's not World War III yet, but it's definitely annoying. This is the shit we have to deal with in 2026. You would think the AI bubble would be enough to handle. You would think the software sell-off would be enough to handle. You would think unemployment, basically zero job growth for the past 2 years, would be enough to handle. You would think a new Fed chair who's actually very hawkish would be enough to handle. You would think private credit would be enough to handle. Nope, we had to put on a freaking war in the midst of all of that. But one signal for why the bear market might be continuing is a stock that is up 4% on the day. Ticker symbol RIC, RCI Hospitality. If you know, you know. If you know, you know. This is a company that operates adult clubs across the country. If you have enough people willing to go to these clubs, which is why their stock is up, then maybe it's still a bull market. Maybe. Although they did have a lawsuit like 3 months ago that they were being investigated for money laundering. So that's also not a good thing, but It is up today. Wow, it's actually up 4% this year. That's dude. Even after the lawsuit, they're up. Strip clubs outperforming the S&P, dude. Goodness gracious. Up 3.6% on the day. Rick Huang, I heard my name again. Yes, we were talking about you, Rick. We're talking about you. Yeah, dude, we have a lot of stuff to deal with this year. We have a lot of stuff to deal with this year. This war is something that, only accelerates the pressure. A variety of things to deal with. Now, again, I continue to be bullish, forget even because of the rate cutting cycle, which is not happening anymore, apparently, but because of earnings growth. If earnings growth, this is the real actual bear case. If Meta, Google, Microsoft, all these guys come out and say, we are lowering our earnings forecast because even though AI is so transformative and we're spending all this CapEx, yada, yada, oil prices or demand or consumer confidence, if any of that stuff is signaled in Q1 by Satya, Sundar, Mark, even Elon to an extent, Tim Cook, that's where I think the market really is going to get scared. Because that's when they're going to be like, okay, if the greatest companies in the world are feeling the pain of something external to the whole AI revolution, which is the macro economy, which quite frankly, the macro has not affected the big tech companies for the past 4 years, even with high rates. But in this case, if high rates end up affecting the consumer so much to the point where the consumer stops shopping, for example, so advertisers stop advertising on Meta to some extent, they're not going to stop completely. But if it has a decline that's enough to make the market feel the earnings growth is not going to be as strong, that is where I think you really get the bears to come out. Which I would hope doesn't happen, but that could be argument. Yeah, we're still in the first quarter. Well, that's the thing. We had Q4. So if the guide for 2026, which was already given in Q4, changes in Q1 across the board, this is why, although, yes, Reddit is cheap, but man, dude, if Reddit ends up saying anything around consumer confidence, they're not the biggest advertising play. Google and Meta are. So as much as I like Reddit on a multiple basis, if there's actually a concern in the economy, Reddit's going to have a little bit of pain. Is it too late for the LA meetup? No, the LA meetup, you can still sign up for it. Also, the Singapore meetup is now live. If you go to the website, I'm linking it right here. If you scroll down to meetups, the Singapore meetup is now live. We have the venue, the location, all that stuff there. I'll link Singapore right here as well in the chat, along with LA. Singapore, June 26th. We are coming to Singapore. And I'm excited because I've never been there. And it's going to be like a little bit of a vacation for me because I'll be with my family. Probably go visit Bali as well. But we will be coming to Singapore. So it should be fun. I'm going by myself to the LA meetup. That's fine. I mean, there's going to be a ton of people there. And so a lot of people come by themselves. You don't need to bring anybody. And, you'll be able to connect with a lot of people that are there at the meetup. Southwest still down. Delta's up 1%. S&P. Dude, S&P is almost break even for the day. We're not, I know it feels ugly because software and fintech is getting smacked, but the S&P is down $1 today. That's not too bad. That is not too bad. Are you going to Singapore before Texas? That's a good point. But, I was advised to do Texas in the winter because it's too hot. So that's why we're doing Texas in November. Even though Singapore, I know, gets really humid, but it also is the only date that lines up with my sister, and she wants to come to Singapore, and she has to wait for her vacation days. So that's why June made the most sense. Okay, let's see what other headlines we have. We got through most of the ones that have just been coming out. Did Moody's increase their chance for a recession? Ed Yardeni's increased it. Yeah, Moody's increased their chance. Wow, 49%. Goldman Sachs raised it to 30%. Ed Yardeni raised it to 35%. Moody's says there's a 49% chance. Now, Moody's has not always been right on these calls, but that's definitely going to scare people if they're aiming for that. Is Rocket Lab a buy? Look, I like Rocket Lab, but I don't like the multiple on this. I just don't. I'm sorry. I know it's down a lot from 99. So just on that momentum downside pressure alone, if you think valuation is not important and it's all about momentum, then yeah, you buy the dip here, right? It's down 30%. But you think the market will start caring about valuation if multiples continue to compress and there's issues in the broader economy, then Rocket Lab's not profitable yet. They have a massive TAM. I get it. SpaceX IPO, I get it, but I'm not a buyer here. Now, again, if you bought this thing at $20 and you're averaging up, who cares, right? But if you're initiating a new position, I'd rather sell the put and force the market to give it to you and give it to you at a better price. I'm not saying I love the valuation on Palantir at all. Just because I don't like the valuation on Rocket Lab doesn't mean I'm saying I love the valuation on Palantir. These stocks are still expensive. Robinhood, if they start showing bad growth in Q2 because of retail activity slowing down, their valuation is also expensive. The only companies that are actually really undervalued are the Mag 7, ex Tesla and Apple. Like when we talk about real dirt undervaluation, companies that have moats, that are growing, and that are trading at multiples that they've historically not traded at for the past 5 years, it's Amazon, Meta, Google, and NVIDIA, and Microsoft. Everything else, even after 30-40% drawdowns, you can make the argument are still expensive given, they got those valuations in a peaking bull market, and that bull market is not happening anymore. And there might need to be a bigger decline. Like Zeta, I think, is ridiculously undervalued, but Zeta is also not the quality of company like a Microsoft, obviously, or even a Rocket Lab for that matter. And so one could argue that no, it's not necessarily fully undervalued. Apple is not undervalued at all. Apple is not undervalued. There is no new Trump tweet. Trump just reposted someone saying that Pakistan welcomes and fully supports the ongoing efforts to pursue dialogue to end the war in the Middle East. So Trump didn't tweet anything. He just retweeted a picture of someone saying Pakistan should continue trying to end the war. But yeah, I mean, guys, let's be realistic about it. Like, if we're actually looking at valuation, Rocket Lab trades at 60 times sales. The people that buy Palantir right here are not buying it because of valuation. They're buying it for a lot of other reasons. And we don't need to go through all those reasons. We've talked about it for a long time. Same thing with Rocket Lab. People are buying it for Neutron and SpaceX, but they're not buying it because these stocks are cheap. We just have to be honest there. These stocks are not absolutely dirt cheap valuations. SoFi, although I think it's down a lot this year, and I think it is relatively cheap, it still trades at a 42 times PE on the trailing 12 months, 27 on the forward, which, would you pay 27 times forward for a bank that's stuck in a pretty ugly narrative around loans? Maybe you do, but there's a lot of people that don't. Shopify trades at a forward PE of 75. I love Shopify, but it's not absolute dirt cheap. Now, in a bull market, these things are cheap because if, Rocket Lab's going to 90 and it's a bull market, then at 60, that's a deal. That's $30 on your money. But we're not really in that bull market right now. Yes, Micron, I agree, but I think we do have to acknowledge that the Micron is absurdly cheap. But at this point, if the market is willing to give Micron a 2.7 times PE in 2028, then there is something about Micron that the market doesn't believe in. Is that objectively cheap? Yes, but it is so objectively absurd in its cheapness that it begs the question, what is going on? And either the market's completely stupid, which is possible. We've seen that happen before, or the cyclicality thing and the lack of DRAM and HBM pricing power, could be a concern. You guys saying rating a green candle? Oh, we are. We just flipped green on the day on the S&P. Okay, someone had to say something. Let's see. This is why we're here every morning, to see us go from misery to a little bit of happiness. Green, green, green across the board. There's no tweet by Trump. I don't see anything. Bloom just flipped green. VG is going down, which means we're going green. Micron up $2. S&P. What was that? What was that? Cactus. What do we got? What do we got? Cactus doesn't have a headline for me. Was that an algo? Was that just the quick little S&P was at 656? There was no tweet from Trump. There is nothing there. I put in the chat. Put in the chat right now before we figure out, was that a fake candle or was that real? What do people think? Was that fake or was that real? Cactus says I have nothing. I don't see anything either. Dude, this is how desperate we are. This is how desperate we are. Oh my gosh. Chad says, I hate to break it to you that I'm here to make fun of you. Chad, the S&P was just up 125 basis points. And now we're losing it. but we were up not 1.25%. We were up 125 basis points because of something. Even Palantir just jumped $3. Dude, what was that? What the hell was that? There is no Trump tweet, guys. There's nothing. S&P's not really reversing fully. It lost like 70 cents from the top, but it's 8 cents away from going green on the day. We are very close to going green. I mean, maybe it's the Trump reposting. I mean, I'll show you guys what it looks like. It's not really a big... Trump reposted this guy who said Pakistan welcomes a full support to end the war. That's not really... That can't be... Is that the headline? Trump reposted a guy who really the market's that volatile that it'll take a repost from Trump, not even his words, on something positive to that's... Dude, that's not a reason. That's ridiculous. That's absolutely insane. That's not real. I mean, we're starting to see that red. We got to go back to 650, 350 for us to lose that. That pump started at 650, 350. We got up to 655.94. Is this it? Iran open to U.S. outreach? Is that the headline? Iranian source says Washington has initiated outreach and Tehran is willing to consider substantial proposals to end the conflict. Yeah, that's it. That's it. Hold on, but that came out at 9:54. That came out an hour ago. That came out an hour ago. An Iranian source says Washington's initiated outreach and Tehran is willing to consider. While no formal negotiations have occurred, Iran is open to plans that safeguard its national interests. That came out an hour ago, and that's not even like a real headline, to be honest. Check CNN. CNN's breaking news is Melania Trump hosts a global coalition summit designed to empower children through technology. I don't know if that's it, bro. It was on CNN. Let me go to them real quick. Maybe okay, so maybe CNN picked up the story on their TV channel. I mean, I don't know, guys. That's kind of sus, in my opinion. That doesn't seem like a reason. Oh yeah, but I think this was it. Yeah, this was it. This happened like 5 minutes ago. I guess this was it.
That conflict is going to continue no matter what happens between the U.S. and Iran.
That good relationship between Israel and the Shah of Iran. That was almost 50 years ago.
That's their breaking news headline. Senior Iranian source tells CNN Washington has reached out. But again, this was tweeted an hour ago. I guess CNN re-pumped the headline. I mean, S&P is still basically green. It worked. I don't know if that source is that important, but it worked. CNBC has it. CNBC is talking about the DHS funding bill. Let me pull that up, though. Shift 4 is still moving. Trump still has not tweeted yet. Let me pull this up right here.
In finding a way to get a lot of the education reforms Trump wants done. But that could be a problem to tackle after the TSA and the vast majority of the DHS is funded. And of course, we'll be continuing to speak with lawmakers throughout today as they meet and try to finalize a path forward that would allow the DHS to reopen. Guys?
All right. Well, there's been reporting then that.
Okay, so now some of the headlines are coming in again. Messages have been received through various intermediaries to assess whether an agreement can be reached to end the war. In recent days, contacts have been established between the United States and Iran, initiated from Washington, but they have not yet reached the level of full negotiations. This is actually very similar to the headline we had yesterday about Pakistan and Turkey wanting to play the intermediary role, which, maybe those headlines are true now that we're getting some new updates around this. Again, the Iran open to U.S. outreach, that was an hour ago tweeted. and reported by Bloomberg. It's getting repumped by CNN, which is probably having an influence. And then this broader argument about U.S. contacts being established between them and Iran. That's for Reuters. Could be another reason why we're getting a pump. We're losing it though. 655 to 654, back to 653. Up. She's losing it. Wow, she lost the whole thing. She lost the whole damn thing. 653.27. The whole 652. This is. I don't have the words for this. Like this is not. No one can control this anymore. This is not you. This is not me. This is not Trump. These are the powers that be. 655 to 652.70 within 5 seconds of me pulling up Webull again as we're talking about the headlines that might allow us to keep 655. And now we're back to 653.70. Like, this is just stupid at this point. This is just the game that we're all part of. We're all little pawns in this game. Did we just go right back to 655? Did we just go right back to 655? Dude, what is happening? The VIX just went up and down 2% in the past, I think literally 30 seconds. S&P is right back to 655. This is becoming insane. This is crazy. And you can't even say it's a glitch because all of us are seeing it. It's not like it's just on one broker going down. It's like all of us are seeing it go up and down. Gulf states weigh military options to counter Iran's escalation. We talked about that already earlier in the day. That's the headline on Saudi Arabia. Wow, S&P right down below 655. I mean, if this is not chop, I don't know what it is. If this is not chop, I don't know what it is. They're trying to end the war. They must be talking. Well, Trump has told us for the past 5 days that they are legit trying to end the war. Maybe some of these headlines are substantiating legitimacy towards the war actually trying to come to an end. And that might be the real headline that everyone's waiting for. The real headline everyone might be waiting for is the headline where Trump comes out and he says, we've had negotiations over the past 3 days. We've come to an agreement, and he puts out all the details, like a really long tweet like he had back in April of last year, where he reported multiple different sectors of a framework for a deal. And then it would still probably take a couple of weeks to get a deal officially signed, but that's all the market needs to go back up. VG must have gone up and down like 2%. Yeah, VG was headed down below 17. Now it's right back at 1712. Hit 1750 on the day. It hit 1727 like freaking, what is it, 5 minutes ago. And now it's right back down. Micron still 393. Micron 393. Again, if you're trading this is just a little bit of a tougher environment to trade. I mean, the volatility is there to give you the exit and the entry. But these are the headlines that are going back and forth. And as they're coming in, they can get someone who's short to flip long and someone who's long to flip short. But it would happen in milliseconds. Revolutionary Guard says we forced the container ship to retreat because it did not have a permit for the Strait of Hormuz. The transit of any ship through the Strait of Hormuz requires full coordination with Iranian maritime sovereignty. Okay, so you have the IRGC coming out and saying we have made ships retreat because they did not have the correct permits, which is actually a bad oil headline. But the S&P is still holding up. Tesla has been green all day. Tesla has been relatively consistent. This is wild, dude. Absolutely freaking wild. Yeah, $2 million permits. That's correct. That's what they're going for. Microsoft 374. That's still down. Microsoft got a little bit of a boost to 376. Then it came back down. IGV up a little bit, but still down 3% on the day. Shift 4 again, up 15%. I guess the borrowing costs to go short are so substantial, given there's no more shares to borrow, that it's causing a bit of a squeeze. That stock is 30% short. There's not a fundamental headline on Shift 4 outside of insider buying. NVIDIA basically flat on the day, 175. Shift 4 up 14. JetBlue flipped green on the day, 2.5%. Hoodie has not fully bounced off 69. We actually hit 68 for a second. Still below 70. SMCI green, Oscar green, ASML green, and then Apple is green as well. Dell was red 10 minutes ago. Dell, wow. 149 to 170. I don't know what flipped Dell right there, but I guess the drop to 149 was an absolute head fake. Amcor also green. AAOI, that's up 10% based on a new purchase order they got yesterday. Yeah, I don't see any Dell headline, but that's green. JP Morgan is also green. Well, then SoFi should be. You have SoFi from 1650 to 1690, but Bank of America, JP Morgan, you're seeing the banks come back to life. XLF is also green today. Ironic because the private credit names are still red for the day. Let's pull up a heat map as well, see what it's like. Dude, what a freaking market. It's literally a movie. It's a script of a movie that's being written on Truth Social every day. This is what you got. Mainly red for tech, green for energy, utilities, and defenses. Walmart's up another 2% today. Costco's up 1.3%. Everything else relatively red to flat. Ondas, high of day, going the opposite of Kratos. Ondas 1135. Kratos is down 7%. Oh, that's right. Banks are up because Circle's down. That's a great point. Yep. Circle still hits 17% today as the banks get a little bit more love from there. You've got some on-the-ground reporting right here at the airports. Let's take a look at this as well.
Frustrated?
It is what it is, man.
It is.
I'm frustrated.
Yeah?
Yeah, absolutely.
Where are you trying to get to?
Omaha, Nebraska. Yeah, so got about an hour to catch my flight here. So, but all this is unnecessary.
Yeah. Who do you blame for this?
Just personally, I think just politicians in general.
Just all of them.
All of them. All of them. Yeah, this could have been avoided, especially in the fourth largest city in the U.S. Yeah.
And you knew what you were getting here today.
Yeah,
We'll walk with you so we
Sure,
don't anger
and
the people behind
absolutely.
you who've been waiting a long time. Do you think you'll make your flight? What time's your flight?
No, I think I'm good. I think I planned accordingly. So,
All right.
yeah.
Very good. Very
But
good.
I do feel bad because I think there's a lot of people that are, different situations that they're going to miss their flights.
Yeah.
And just depending on what they have going on. Some people are going to graduation, some people are medical procedures. Who knows the reason why though? But yeah, it's not really fun to miss a flight.
All right. Well, hang in there. Hope you make that connection. So, there's been countless people like that.
So that's in Houston. JFK has also not been the best. Let me see if I can find the JFK video. Because there was one that went viral yesterday. Yeah, this one. Let me pull this up. So this was also one that went pretty viral yesterday around JFK.
Okay, right now it's 4:19 a.m. and I am in an Uber hoping to catch a 9 a.m. flight from Terminal 5. Let's see how it goes.
Is how long the TSA line was yesterday in Terminal 5, is wrapping around the terminal. Traffic this early is not a good sign. The airport. It's 4:53 a.m. Just got to the airport and it is really busy, but doesn't look as bad as it was yesterday.
Dude, that is crazy. Like, that's a line just for security. It's almost like 700 people.
Right, he said. 501, and I just checked my bags in the Mint Mosaic line, waiting for my friend to get here, and then I am going to see how good or bad the pre-check line is for TSA. So this big line is apparently not a pre-check, which is the regular line. It is massive. The estimated wait time is 55 minutes. It's 5:08, and I am just walking into the pre-check line, and the line is really, really short, which is great news.
I mean, that's pretty crazy, dude. Now, pre-check is available at some places. At Newark, they took down pre-check for certain flights. Circle right, they're still down 15%. So I guess if you have free pre-check, that is one way to avoid some of this, which I don't know why I don't have pre-check. I should have it by now, but I've just never gotten it. But if you're flying regular, it's pretty ugly. VG losing 17, which is bullish for the broader market. S&P just below 655. Yes, these are definitely first world problems, but at the end of the day, if you're living in the first world and you need to go do stuff and you want it to be efficient, then it's still a problem, right? It's definitely not something that people want to navigate. I mean, that's part of the benefit of living in the first world, right? That you can get to an airport and get to your destination on time. That's why you pay first world taxes. So when that shit stops working, it's not as fun. IGV down 4%. Amit flies private. I do not fly private. That is crazy, though. The people that get to fly private, dude, they just hop on a jet and just leave. I think the average, it usually depends, but if you're going like LA to New York, it's like $50,000, I think, to go private back and forth. So you got it, you got to have the money to be able to charter a private jet. Senator Banks urges Lutnick to reconsider NVIDIA export licenses. These senators have lost their damn minds, bro. Anything that makes it harder for NVIDIA to sell chips is going to hurt the U.S. economy. It's 8% of the S&P. There's a reason we approve the export controls. Like, I don't think these senators realize everyone's 401k is affected by NVIDIA. So it's not really the best thing to do this. Will you go business class to LA or Singapore? No, I'm flying basic economy to LA. And for Singapore, the ticket's already so expensive in coach that I'm definitely not paying for economy. So I think it's like $1,500. So I will try to get an aisle seat, though, for Singapore. Because being in the middle for 15 hours is not going to be fun. But outside of that, we'll be flying normally. All right, so I guess that was a little bit of a fake pump, right, guys? I mean, unless we recover 656.90 or 655.90, then it's just breaking even on the day, which is better than where we were 20 minutes ago. But it's still pretty red compared to where we were yesterday at the highs. What happened to IGV? I think it's that Claude thing that went viral today, which doesn't even seem like it's that bad for ServiceNow and Adobe and Salesforce. Adobe is the one that I think is getting hit for no reason, dude. Adobe is not really selling enterprise workflows. They're selling software around media. And I guess the way you get Adobe to be hit is if Gemini or OpenAI Sora, which no one talks about Sora anymore, by the way, if those models get, just better at what Adobe's core value proposition is. But, Adobe's not selling CRM tools and things of that nature. And that's what Claude is going after. Claude's not going after video generation or Photoshop, right? At least not yet. So it is kind of weird that Adobe is getting hit as badly compared to the other ones. Yeah, I guess Firefly is being questioned on if that is going to be the core AI model that people need. High of day for AAOI. Again, they had a big purchase order coming yesterday, 106. That's up 11% on the day. Did you pay your taxes yet? No, I'll be paying those likely next week. Not going to be fun, but it is what it is. That also could be a little bit of a headwind for the broader markets. But people will also be getting their tax refunds in a couple weeks as well. And I wonder if that actually puts money into the economy, which is not really good because that means we're going to have more inflation if oil continues to stay high. But maybe it helps corporate earnings be okay. So it is ugly. I got $4K back in taxes. I have to pay $16,000. June just said I paid mine. It was brutal. Yeah, I don't think I've never gotten a tax refund because I've always been self-employed. So I started paying taxes officially in 2018. And yeah, I never had a W-2. So never got a refund, but it has accelerated. The biggest regret I have is I didn't start a solo 401k when I was 20 years old. Because you can write off almost 60, 70 grand if you're self-employed by contributing to that solo 401k. And I found out about it last year. It's like basic shit, dude. I could have been saving so much on taxes and having money actually grow over the past 7 years. But I'm not making that mistake this time. Ray said I just paid mine and I cried. Oh my gosh. Amit wished my grandpa happy birthday. He is 85. He got a kick out of it when he told him last year. Happy birthday to Mr. Michelle's grandpa. Michelle, you got to be making him a cake today. I imagine you have to. 85. That is incredible. I'm happy you're celebrating it, listening to the stream. Michelle, I'm still waiting for my cake, dude. I'm waiting for a Hood Palantir cake. I'm baking him a peach cobbler. You know, I've never had a peach cobbler. I've heard about them before, but I've never actually had it. I need to have it one day. Not sure you can sell covered calls or buy spreads in the 401k, though. Yeah, I can't do anything in my 401k. I'm just straight buying stock in it. And quite frankly, I don't want to. I don't want to manage it. Like, I literally just want to buy stock and, like, not even look at it. So that's one of those accounts, like, I want to contribute, buy stock, and forget about it. Because I'm like, quite literally, for the next 40 years, I'm not even thinking of taking money out. You might not have been able to buy your Hood spreads if you... That's true, dude. If I had contributed to the solo 401k over the past couple of years, I might not have had the liquid cash to buy as much Palantir and buy as much Hood. So that's fair. That is fair. But it definitely is a hack for taxes. Coinbase down 7, Shopify down 3. My grandma's turning 100 this weekend. Wow. All right. Well, happy birthday to Tomasilio's grandma. 5-generation family celebration. That is incredible. 100 years old. That's pretty amazing. You know, hopefully all of us get to witness that. It's gonna be funny because our kids are probably not gonna be thinking 100 is the end, or 85 is getting close, or 90, which the average lifespan right now is around that 82 range. Maybe medical technology gets so good enough where 120, 130, 140 is what people are going to be aiming for. I don't think it's going to happen in our lifetimes, but maybe our kids' that's what plays out. S&P goes green. S&P officially goes green. Oh, did Trump just tweet? I think he just did. No, but we're seeing some more green candles coming in. No, Trump did not just tweet. It's not reloading on my end. I'm seeing these headlines, though, that Trump said something. I don't see the tweet, though. This is the second time we're going green, which means there's probably a reason. Let's see if we can get 656. I don't see it. NVIDIA just went green. Yeah, it's like legit green now. I mean, obviously it could flip really quickly like it did last time. Circle just continues to go down 18%. Shift 4 still moving. Dude, there's no tweet. Is that maybe CNN is pumping another headline or something? Oh, Microsoft announces AI for nuclear collaboration with NVIDIA. Is that our headline? Is that enough? Microsoft still down. NVIDIA just flipped green. Are Microsoft and NVIDIA about to invest in a ton of nuclear energy startups? Is Oklo going green? Oklo, little candle right there. SMR, little candle. NNE, little candle. The nuclear names of this deal ends up becoming a big one. They might be set up for a short-term bounce right here. That is a headline. I don't know if that is the headline. I'm seeing a bunch of other stuff about Trump, but I don't see any tweets that he's putting out. Let me see if I can find the press release. Nuclear NKLR, that's another one. That's up a little bit. Microsoft to rent the Texas data center dropped by Oracle and OpenAI. Okay, so this is so confusing because Oracle came out and said that is fake, that we're not dropping the space for the data center in Texas. So why are we seeing a headline that Microsoft is renting a dropped space? Someone was obviously lying. And it feels like it was Oracle at this point, if Microsoft's renting this space. This is so confusing, but okay, so I guess NVIDIA is going to be backstopping this for Microsoft. Again, NVIDIA is 8% of the S&P 500, so this could be moving the broader market. We need more on this. This is just like a sentence. I want to see if we have an actual statement from the companies on this. Yeah, whose data center is it anyway? And then there was the argument that Meta was taking over the data center when the Oracle headline broke. That's what tanked all the neoclouds. Apparently it's not Meta, it's Microsoft. Like, what the hell is happening? SoFi back over 17, Shift 4 still moving as well. Bloom Energy should be pumping on this. Yep, there you go, Bloom at 143. Dude, I really need to bring the soundboard back. These are moments where we absolutely have to have a soundboard. Like there's too much shit happening in the morning for us to not have a fun soundboard here. Yeah, guys, I don't have anything else other than Microsoft, NVIDIA partner for nuclear ambitions. If we had something more, maybe we would see some of these names get a bigger pump, but you're not really seeing that. Trump is speaking at 1:30. Is he? Is Trump speaking today? Dude, I don't think this guy has gone a single day without a live stream. I really don't. Yes, 1:30 he'll be not tweeting, he'll be going live. There will be an announcement. That's the headline. Trump major announcement at 1:30. Oh, it's not that serious. Dude, he's going to be swearing in the Secretary of Homeland Security. It's not going to be that serious. Now, granted, he'll probably take questions and he'll probably talk about what's going on in Iran, but it's not like he's doing a dedicated press conference for Iran. But he will be live at 1:30. Let's see if we can get some more coverage on some of the stuff going on.
Of course, from Anthropic, that would allow its Claude AI tool to work and finish tasks from your computer, even if you're away from your desk. But our next guest says tech could take the lead in the market again, despite ongoing uncertainty. Joining us here at Post 9 with his outlook as PNC Asset Management Chief Investment Strategist, Youngyu Ma. Welcome back. It's good to have you.
Thanks,
I mean, I get your point that it's sort of a port in the storm.
Okay, we'll go back to that in a second and see what they're saying about software, but I think we have the NVIDIA. Oh, okay, we got something. We got a blog post. All right, let's go through this. Let me pull this up. So there's a video. Let's watch this, and then we'll get to the press release.
As global energy demand accelerates, the challenge isn't just generating more power. It's delivering energy fast enough, safely. From powering world-class data centers to decarbonizing heavy industry, rapid electrification is shrinking the timeline for reliable carbon-free energy. Together, Microsoft and NVIDIA are redefining what's possible, uniting AI, cloud, and simulation capabilities to modernize how nuclear power is designed, built, and operated. Working with our partners at the forefront of nuclear AI, we're building the foundation for commercially scalable next-generation nuclear power, turning complexity into repeatable industry programs and delivery.
Microsoft and NVIDIA Cloud and their AI capabilities have enabled Allo to accelerate our mission of mass manufacturing nuclear power plants. We will power anything from a small data center to a large city, and one day help bring the world out of energy poverty with mass manufactured, cheap, and predictable nuclear energy.
Microsoft and NVIDIA make it possible to replicate reference architectures, maintain regulatory compliance with confidence, and reduce organizational risk, while making operations safer and more efficient. From research and design to permitting, construction, and management, our technologies help organizations scale faster, reduce costs, and improve decision confidence. With NVIDIA AI solutions on Microsoft Azure, teams can rapidly iterate and optimize designs, while NVIDIA Omniverse digital twins enable high-fidelity fission and fusion simulations before a single component is built. With digital twins, designs are tested, risks are reduced, and performance is validated digitally, strengthening safety, accelerating regulatory compliance, and enabling.
Okay, we're done. I'm sorry I made you guys. What is this, bro? Who made this stupid video? This is Disney Channel corporate ass video. Like, what was that, bro? You just needed Jensen and Satya for 30 seconds to record something, and that would, like, what the hell did we just watch? That really felt like we were looking at nonsense. To break the infrastructure bottleneck and shift the industry from ambition to delivery, Microsoft is announcing an AI for nuclear collaboration with NVIDIA to provide end-to-end tools that streamline permitting, accelerate design, and optimize operations across the industry. Okay, this sounds like a lot of mumbo jumbo to say they're going to be essentially focusing on nuclear energy for data centers. It feels like that's mainly what they're doing. Yeah, I don't know if it's that big of a deal, guy. I mean, it's one of those partnerships. It's not like the Anthropic, NVIDIA, Microsoft partnership where all three of the CEOs came together for 10 minutes to talk about what they're doing. I mean, this just seems normal that, yeah, obviously Microsoft, which has so much demand for Azure and is buying so many GPUs, would work with the company that they're buying the GPUs from to solve one of the bottlenecks, which is energy. I don't know if that's a game changer for Microsoft. Definitely not a game changer for NVIDIA. Microsoft's still flat on the day or down on the day. And I don't know if that's necessarily going to pump the nuclear stocks, but maybe the headline does. Oklo getting a bit of a green candle, still red on the day. Trade desk just dumped 3% down. That still is getting hit. ASTS went green. S&P high of day. 88.76 on ASTS. I mean, I guess the NVIDIA announcement plus that Trump Iranian source that CNN is reporting, those two are enough to maybe shift momentum right here. 650, 670 as we're going kind of green. Yeah, just say how many watts you're going to produce exactly. Like all this mumbo jumbo about what you're going to do. It's like the market's not going to care about any of that. I mean, that's very technical information about like nuclear power plants that literally no one cares about, other than the end result and output of what happens for energy. TTD is falling pretty heavy. What's the headline here? 7% down on Trade Desk. This is after the CEO bought 150 million worth of stock. Palantir 155 now. TTD. Omnicom launches audit of TTD fees. They're getting audited by Omnicom, which is the world's largest marketing and sales company for media communications. Well, that's not good, especially if that audit reveals stuff that is also not good. TTD there down 7% here on the day. Just Circle is still getting wrecked, bro. 17% down. All right, so we got an NVIDIA Microsoft headline that did not much for the individual stocks, but it's helping the S&P. NVIDIA's up about 30 cents, a little bit green. And then we had that Trump communicating with Iranian sources headline, which I guess when you put that together, it definitely reverses the trend of the day. Is crude dropping, at least for now? Crude is still up 4%, 91.50. Nothing too crazy. Yeah, Path's down 10% on Claude, and the other software names are down on Claude as well. Photonics names are up today, yep, besides AAOI. They're up. Do you think you have a full position on NVIDIA now? Yeah, I would say so. I mean, in the article I put out yesterday, I'll link it again. I pretty much doubled my position in the past 3 months. So really don't need more, but once again, I just really feel you're getting to buy a $250 stock at 170. And I think it's cheap. I also think it has a better potential to move versus Amazon. As much as I love Amazon, and I'm going to do an article on Amazon today, but NVIDIA is the beneficiary of all the free cash flow spent on CapEx. Amazon is the one who's disadvantaged by spending all of it in the short term. So I would be very surprised if Amazon outperforms NVIDIA by the end of the year, like very surprised. But, you know, long-term Amazon with that Anthropic stake continues to be incredibly valuable. Microsoft is way oversold. I agree as well. Why do you think NVIDIA is not getting the bid? I wrote about it in the article, but it's macro. I mean, it's macro and the question around the sustainability and durability of CapEx. And that's why I think Jensen is going on all these podcasts and saying, guys, we're going to be doing trillions in revenue. No one believes him, but it's his job to paint that story. And if he's right, this stock's not going to be stuck at 4 trillion market cap. But I get it. It's worth $4.5 trillion. The market's like, dude, like we're not going to give you a higher premium right now until things clear up in the macro. And you can't even be mad at the market for that. VG going back up 1722. Rocket Lab as well, trying to recover a little bit, 66.70 here. And Micron's still getting crushed. Why is Dell doing well? Well, SMCI, again, kind of crapped the bed with the scandal last week. I think Dell's getting a decent chunk of that business. Theoretically, Dell also beat earnings by a hefty margin, $17 billion on revenues for the guide. So those tailwinds, along with Dell, I mean, their operating margins are still bad, but they are improving year over year, even if it's only a couple basis points. I guess that's enough to get excited for Dell. I just, in the semiconductor space, I think there's other buys outside of Dell. Around 130, 140, Dell was a bit more attractive. But the move has kind of happened there. Like Broadcom to me seems incredibly attractive, but Broadcom as well, until they get that OpenAI revenue, even though they're growing the market, if they're going to down GPUs, they're probably going to down ASICs. Oracle is right back. Dude, Oracle is back to where it was before earnings. Oracle went to 170 on earnings, right back to 148. It was literally at 148. I think it was at 147 to 149 right before we got the print. Which, if you're talking about playing OpenAI, it would be Oracle, right? When NVIDIA bounces, Dell could have a massive spike. Yeah, I don't deny that. I mean, that's very, very possible, especially given, wow, Dell, 5% right there. Yeah, like SMCI and HP are not doing the same business Dell is doing with servers. And servers, at the end of the day, are commodities. There's nothing proprietary about server technology. So Dell could easily take that business. Ondas right there, 11. Let's get more of an update on why some of these software names are getting hit.
With oil prices and geopolitics, but doesn't look so safe if every time there's a new Claude update, these stocks sell off. So what do you do?
Yeah, there are going to be areas of disruption. These bumps are going to happen. We think this is going to be a theme that's unavoidable. But ultimately, where you're looking for growth, especially if growth becomes scarce, the tech is the area, broadly speaking. Now, certainly software has been in the crosshairs. There's been some bottoming action going on. But again, with this release, it invites another bump in the road.
So when you say tech, what do you mean?
Well, I think you want broad exposure. I mean, there are hardware names. If you're looking at AI-related plays, part of that's hardware. You are seeing some software in the bottoming names. I don't think you should completely avoid some of the stronger software players here either. But I think a broad exposure of technology, including AI-related, communications-related as well, is where you're going to ultimately find growth in the economy and in the market, especially if we get higher inflation that lasts longer than people are thinking right now.
Are you worried? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, why not just own the S&P? It's got a pretty high percentage of broadly speaking, technology.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the S&P right now is, if you include the tech adjacent areas, about 50% technology. I mean, that's certainly a way to go. I think the question is, are you looking for more targeted exposure here? Because ultimately, this is a shock happening to the economy. We don't know how long it's going to go on. And oftentimes what we see is on the other side of the shock, the landscape looks different than it did going in. And if growth becomes more scarce, you could see that renewed outperformance in technology. So a relative play, but you're right, S&P is often a good way to go.
I was just going to ask if you're worried about the rest of the market in terms of earnings growth in this kind of environment, which is why you see tech outperforming.
That is part of the potential thesis here. I think it's in question now. And the question is how long and how pronounced the disruption is in the energy markets and how quickly that starts to permeate through the economy.
Speaking of this disruption from software, let's take a look at the Perplexity CEO. He was on the All-In Pod yesterday. And, people have kind of forgot about Perplexity, but with Perplexity Computer, that has started to get a lot more people to take notice of them.
For the tokens, you pay for the usage. Are you making money on the $400 a month, $5,000 a year one, or at this point in time, are people going so crazy?
Our one thing that Perplexity has is every revenue we make, unlike certain other wrapper companies, every revenue Perplexity makes has positive gross margins.
Got it.
Because we're not just selling tokens.
Right.
Most of our revenue is recurring because people are paying a subscription fee. And because we route through multiple different models, we're very efficient in terms of how we spend on the tokens. Because we have all this advantage with RAG and orchestration and search, we don't actually need to blow up the context window of the models.
Yeah.
As a result of that, we have positive gross margins on all the revenue we make. Every single penny we make profits on that. Overall, the company is still yet to be profitable, but we're working towards that.
You've had the opportunity to exit. A lot of rumors, Apple, other people were like, hey, this is a great team. How many people on the team now?
About 400.
Yeah, you've got a very coveted team. You obviously understand consumer. You obviously understand business. It's a product-driven organization. Reports are you declined, but the world's getting hyper-competitive here. How do you keep up as a 400-person organization when you got Sam Altman over here raising $100 billion, and then you have Elon putting data centers in space and merging with SpaceX and Twitter. You have Google with unlimited resources, Amazon getting in the game, and obviously Gemini, very strong product, and Google, really good at consumer. I think we'd all agree Facebook and Meta haven't figured it out yet, except maybe for serving us better ads, but they haven't figured out the consumer case yet, but they'll copy it. They always do. How do you look at the playing field? Because the degree of difficulty, this isn't playing checkers or this.
No, the interesting thing about Perplexity is, again, they are producing more durable revenues, as he said, but Perplexity Computer, particularly in finance, has been one of the big disruptors. Circle down 18% here. But it's been seen as a lot more of a competitive alternative to other software companies, just like Claude, based on the agentic infrastructure that Perplexity has really rolled out. Now, Claude has just done it in a much more aggressive way, which is why the software names get hit every time Claude launches something. But Perplexity is not as dead as people thought it used to be. Wall Street Journal, we got a headline: Iran worries talks might be a trap. Officials in Tehran are concerned that Trump's postponement of strikes in energy infrastructure could be an attempt to damp oil prices before resuming. That is actually very reasonable for Iran to think. Google right there down 2% on the day as well. Not sure why Google's getting hit, but it is. I mean, obviously Trump came out yesterday and said he's going to delay the strikes to make oil prices go down. Like there should be no doubt in anyone's mind that was, really 7 a.m. right before the markets open. Like obviously he was trying to get the markets to, not be as afraid as they were on the Sunday night futures. And this is what he does. He builds up tension on Saturday, releases on Monday. Like we've seen this playbook so many times. But if he did talk to somebody, even if the plan was to kind of release that tension and build it up, if he legit talked to that Speaker of the Parliament, which is what has been reported, and maybe the Pakistan and Turkey are involved as intermediaries, maybe that is a legitimate reason for the street to think oil prices should substantially come down. But if I was Iran, obviously I would be skeptical that it would come down. Crude 91.08, down from the highs of the day. VG once again is ripping. That's your high of day, 1760. Moving up, and shift 4. Dude, what a random move by Shift. There's nothing real about this pump other than the short fee increased, or the borrow rate on the short fee increased. There's nothing else fundamental. Shift 4, 22%. VG, obviously, with natural gas, that's up 11%. S&P goes green again, hovering above 656. NVIDIA loses 176. We were there for a second. The nuclear names just went red after going slightly green. Bloom is up a little bit. And then SoFi back to red. Yes, Bank of America gave 150 price targets on NVIDIA, on Nebius, 114. So the summary of the CNN story was contacts between the U.S. and Iran have been established in the recent days. It was initiated from Washington, not as a formal negotiation, but as the beginning of some potential discussion. Messages exchanged via intermediaries to assess the potential deal, and Iran is open to hearing sustainable proposals to end the war. This does conflict, though, with the reporting around how the Ayatollah is considering this. The thing about the 12-day war back in June of 24 or 25 was that the Ayatollah was the main source that agreed against other officials in the Iranian regime, this was widely reported at the time, to end the war. Like that 85-year-old guy that the U.S. just killed, he was the I guess you can say, voice of reason at the moment, and saying, okay, 12 days is enough. We should now have a ceasefire. And that's when he called Trump, and they'd had some attack that didn't kill anybody, just to show to their people that they've attacked the United States again, and then it all ended. His son is not as diplomatic. And you've got a lot of reporting that the people representing Iran right now, particularly from the IRGC, they feel like they have nothing to lose at this point, given how much has happened. So, you have some stories saying, hey, they're open to ending the war and having sustainable proposals. And then you have other reporting saying these guys are ready to fight till the end. And I don't think the market knows exactly who to believe either. Is he alive? That's a good question. I mean, we have not seen a video of the new Ayatollah, which is the previous Ayatollah's son, speak. And if anyone has the video, you could let me see it. You can send it to me, because I have not seen him at all publicly address the media. We've had statements, but written statements are not the same thing as talking. So now, granted, maybe they don't want to show his face because they're afraid that he'll be killed, but I don't know. You have a lot of conflicting things going back and forth. Circle right there still down 18%. Where is Meta? Is Meta down with Google? Meta's not down as much as Google. Google is down a bit more, but Microsoft's down the most today, 373 on Microsoft. What happened to Circle? A drafted bill for the Clarity Act was leaked. It's not pretty for stablecoins. If it doesn't get approved, though, I don't know why the market's so upset about Circle. Like, I guess the market really thinks there's a chance it'll get approved and Circle will get the short end of the stick on that deal. Meta 596, Nebius 114.93. That's also affecting, Coinbase. So this parliament speaker that Trump has been reportedly speaking to, the next question is, okay, does this guy have any real influence with the IRGC? And if he doesn't, then it also dampers the idea that we're actually having any meaningful talks to end the war, because this guy just might not be a real representative for how this is playing out. Let's get a little bit more coverage on some of this stuff with Trump.
And management. Why did you write a book on presidential leadership?
Sitting next to David, I would never win the contest he was on business trivia, but I'll come in second on those contests. So it was actually Jared Kushner's idea, as you know, because we're friendly with Ivanka and Jared. And in fact, thank you for helping us the last time we presented an award with Ivanka to Bernard Arnault. Sarah, she enjoyed presenting with you. Is Jared knows that I've known Trump longer than anybody in Trump 1.0, except the family and Wilbur Ross, frankly. And Trump 2.0, I know him longer than anybody in the current administration because the family's not involved. And I was the original critic is the late, great Jeff Zucker, when he was back with NBC Universal, had me writing a column each week on the first season of The Apprentice. And that would appear in the Wall Street Journal. It was supposed to do great lessons on leadership from that. And some of the lessons weren't so good. I know you find it hard to believe. He was a little sensitive to the criticism, and he got a little mad at times. We wound up becoming pretty friendly after it all. And I had actually, Zucker will deny this, but Trump will support this, that I came up with the idea of the Celebrity Apprentice, and he loved that idea. It was morphing away from a bad image for young people, leadership on TV, and to move into that.
A mystery for some of them.
People have to understand, he's the most consequential person alive, like him or not right now. As we just saw yesterday, he moved energy markets 6%. He moved this time last year, he moved all the markets 20% on Liberation Day. There's nobody we know that has that kind of impact. And I sent you a note, if you didn't mind, I don't know if you saw it in your email, and I hope Mike Novogratz doesn't mind me mentioning that he sent it to me by just saying that everybody ought to buy this book. It was a great endorsement. I wish we got it on the jacket, but the Crypto King said, you can't trade if you don't understand Donald Trump's mind. Getting into Donald Trump's mind, he said, is more important than inflation numbers, employment numbers, who the Fed head is, or what the interest rates are. He said that this is understanding Donald Trump's mind, and that's what we get into in here. And the first, it's hard to believe this, the first leadership scholar to actually look at him. This is not an endorsement book, and this is not one of those scolds. This is not a kiss and tell. It's not a disenchanted former member of the administration or a journalist that's critiquing from the outside, but somebody who studied the arc of his career for a quarter century, That's what's in here.
But isn't part of getting inside his mind the unpredictability of it?
There's an unpredictability. He moves the markets. He has a huge impact. But you've got to understand what he does is he operates. You know, when people were talking about the founder of Airbnb this time last year was talking about founder mode. That's kind of what he likes, and it is. There are pros.
I mean, the main thing we got from that for this guy who's known Trump his whole life is Trump is going to be Trump, which is essentially dictate how he wants things to play out through tweets. I mean, through statements, through little reports. And, you know, we've obviously been used to that for the past year and a half. It's just now we're dealing with a war as the basis for how Trump is going to communicate with the broader markets. I do think, though, that the broader takeaway from that is recognizing this will eventually be over. As ugly as it sounds, as annoying as it is, like Trump at the end of the day has a massive ego and he wants the economy to do well. He misses Dow 50,000, which is why you keep seeing all these reports every other day about him wanting the war to end. Like, you know, as much as I think that this has been a convoluted military operation with a lot of different conflicting narratives and signals where you don't really know exactly what's happening, I do have a lot of faith that it will end soon. Now, what does soon mean? If I had to put a timeline on it, I would say a couple months, which is better than 10 years, right? I don't know if it's going to be a couple weeks. I know Trump said a couple days yesterday, but I think it ends sooner than not. And if it doesn't, it's just shooting ourselves in the foot. Higher oil prices, the Republicans will lose the midterms, stocks will suffer from consumer demand weakening, consumer confidence is going to weaken, earnings are not going to be as good. Who knows if CapEx spend goes down, if Google starts seeing their stock get hit. I mean, like that would be the worst thing for GDP growth. So when you put all those things logically together, it makes sense theoretically that Trump will eventually find the off-ramp and negotiate some deal and pass this off as a victory. We just don't know when. Just don't know when. Tesla right there at 384. It's going to last at least 2 to 3 years. Yeah, I disagree with that. I mean, I don't think this is going to last 2 to 3 years. I really don't. I really don't. If I had to bet, I would say 2 to 3 months over 2 to 3 years. It's just not practical for this to happen. And when push comes to shove, Trump ends up as impractical as he is in the lead up of the tension. When it comes to the relieving of the tension, aka 90-day pause on reciprocal tariffs, yada, not where we don't care about Greenland anymore. Like he ends up, becoming more practical. I think he's trying to become more practical right now. He got himself into a bit of a pickle that's not as easy to get out of, which I think will take weeks or months, not days, but I don't think it's going to be years. Boots on the ground isn't a good sign of an off-ramp. That's also true. I mean, look, that is fair. Now, granted, so I should say, the caveat here is if we are legit going with boots on the ground, yes, the off-ramp seems harder. Now, I think there's a world where we have boots on the ground, not literally on the ground, but in the region, and that theoretically could accelerate the time of the war, but doesn't, make it a full-on ground operation. But if Trump's like sending 200,000 troops to Iran, then yeah, it's probably not ending in a couple months. I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think he's going to have 50,000 troops in Iran trying to get a freaking regime change. I think he's even given up on the idea of like legitimately getting rid of the regime. But if I'm wrong, then, it's going to be a lot uglier of a picture. By the way, there was a crazy story on Greenland. I don't know if you guys saw this, but Greenland was planning. The Danish military sent explosives and supplies to Greenland in January as a part of a contingency planning for a U.S. attack. So basically, Denmark was ready to blow up Greenland. This is for the Financial Times, if the U.S. invaded. Which is kind of crazy. Could you imagine if it went that seriously? Like Denmark was ready to say, look, you're not going to take over the sovereignty of Greenland. We'd rather blow it up than giving you guys access to it. So back in January, they had a feeling that Trump was getting ready for this. And I mean, it goes to show that the Iranians are also going to fight for their sovereignty. They're not just going to easily let the U.S. do what they want to do. S&P still slightly green on the day. Are we seeing any bigger move right here? Oh, we're not seeing any crazy macro headline again. We talked about. Oh, we should listen to Gunlock. He was on yesterday as well. The Bond King. Get a little bit of his thoughts on how he's thinking about the credit markets right now.
On today's big rebound and opportunity now to let everything marinate a little bit. So it's, I think, a great time to still catch up with you. And we'll get to all things Fed in a moment, obviously. But I would like to get your initial thoughts just broadly on these markets, because there's so much going on. You had the headlines, this morning that moved the market. Just tell me from your perspective where you think we are right now.
I thought it was really interesting about the decline of the last few weeks in risk assets that the VIX index never really got above 30, which was really strange. I heard a lot of guests on CNBC saying, well, if the VIX gets above 40, maybe that's your signal that things are washed out and it's time to buy. But in spite of all of the volatility, we didn't really see the VIX go up. Meanwhile, the spreads on fixed income have definitely been on the march. It doesn't get a lot of play because it was swamped by war headlines and private credit kind of smash ups. But high yield spreads have risen by something like 60 basis points, maybe at the wide 70 basis points from where they were. And all corporate credit is definitely widening. Emerging markets have been widening. What's been the safety place is what we expected would be the safety place, which is things like asset-backed securities, commercial mortgage-backed securities. They've actually been some of the most stable asset classes. So I feel like that today's action is very good. I mean, we closed very weakly in the market on Friday, pretty much on the lows. And some people, I heard Tom Lee saying some institutional clients were looking to short the market at the open today. Doesn't look like that happened. If they did, they're regretting it now. But the market, I think, is in a...
Well, the reason that didn't happen is because at 7 a.m., 7:04 to be exact, Trump tweeted that he's going to delay the strikes on those power plants, which obviously manipulated the markets to not be as bearish as they were Sunday night. So for the clients that did want to short, they had a pretty simple reason to not go short.
A revaluation phase. And I believe that money is it's hard to make money this year. It started out that people were making money in foreign markets and in commodities, but while commodities and gold specifically are still up, they're not up very much. We were talking about this in our strategy meetings the last couple of weeks, and I was saying, I really think for the long haul, I still want to be in commodities and I still want to have a gold position. But my enthusiasm for gold was definitely exceeded last year by the market's actual action. You might remember, Scott, that I talked about gold would go above 4,000 last year. And we talked about that when it was well below 4,000. Well, I was not enthusiastic enough, I guess, because it went up to almost 5,500. But now we're back down at about what I thought would be the target for gold as a high point for the year. But at this level, I think it's a very good opportunity to add to gold and to add to commodities. I'm not terribly enthusiastic about credit or stocks at this point. I don't think they're cheap enough. I think I would want to see the VIX go.
Who agrees with that? Is this the time to buy the commodities dip? I don't know, bro. S&P got to 657, by the way. So definitely you're getting a little bit more excitement here. I don't know if this is the time to buy gold, silver, and copper, or platinum and palladium. It feels, yes, they're down a lot. And I know we're in a commodity super cycle, but goodness, it feels like those are speculative assets that have been bid up. And gold probably shouldn't have got to 5,500 because there's no macro event that happened that would send gold to the moon. It was all people chasing. Like, it was literally people getting upset. I mean, retail flows on the GLD ETF hit an all-time high back in January before it crashed. So, sometimes things are down from a high, but if it never was supposed to get to that high, that doesn't mean when they're down, it necessarily creates a good deal. Having said that, gold for the long term obviously is always a decent buy. But if you were looking for a short-term bounce off 4,400, I wonder if that actually happens for gold. Grab is up 5% on the day. Yes. Is this the time to buy Grab? For those that are wondering, look, again, I have felt the stock is undervalued for a while. You don't see too much excitement in my voice because, unfortunately, a 5% move is nice, but it's down a lot. It's down. I mean, it was 650 in freaking September of last year. It was 450 in January of last year. So as happy as I am that the company's making progress, I'm not impressed by the price action. And do I think it's cheap? Yeah, of course I think it's cheap. I think it's intrinsically cheap, but it's got a lot of work to do before we, I think, get actually excited about the price movement. I also want to see if this price action holds. Grab has some good days and then it gives it up the next day. So it is one of the better growth stocks today, but we got to see if we can hold on to it. NVIDIA, 175. By the way, Amir, who I think he'll be on the channel one day, we're going to do a live stream on his research report on Grab. He actually did one. He was talking about it in September doing it, and it took him a while because he was finishing up a couple other reports, but you can download the report for free on his Substack. I'm linking it right here. I thought it was a really good report. It looks like it's an institutional quality grade report. I mean, he takes this stuff very seriously. And based on his numbers, he thinks the stock should be trading at $7.25. So that's his fair intrinsic value, and I think he does a really good job breaking down the analysis of it. Wow, Axon's down today. Axon's getting hit. 9% on Axon. Circle, Axon, just big losers today. Why is Axon down freaking 9%? They had a great earnings in February. The photonics plays are up. I don't see the headline on Axon, but it's selling off. These guys sell body cameras, for those that don't know. Do you think we bottomed on SoFi? I don't do it. See, Tanner is the only one who can answer that question because, look, I think a 40% drawdown is enough pain for SoFi. But if this fair value accounting thing gets more press, if they lose some loan purchase agreements from their partners inside of the LPB, I mean, you can make a variety of bear cases with the macro in the context of the fact that they are a bank at the end of the day and the fintech part of the business is completely discounted. The growth rate in and of itself should be enough to say that this stock is cheap compared to the multiple that growth stocks get. But if high beta growth doesn't get a multiple, if the bank narrative continues, and then here's the big dagger. If freaking rate cuts don't happen until 2027, I don't know how cheap SoFi is because Noto guided for 2 rate cuts. I think the company will be fine without the rate cuts, but do they have that explosive growth without them? I don't know. I mean, Noto's going to have to really, really put up some numbers. Wow, Circle down 19, bro. Was the whole Circle pump fake? For it to be down 19% on a leaked draft, was everything fake that we've seen in the past month? I mean, this is incredible, dude. 20% down on the day. But yeah, that could be the issue with SoFi. Do you have any covered calls on Grab? No. Grab, unfortunately, does not have good premiums. So you can sell covered calls on Grab, but you'd have to go a couple months out. You could maybe only sell for $4, $4.50. It's not even worth selling the covered call. So I would not buy Grab to sell calls on. But if you're new to covered calls and want to learn how to do it, and you need 100 shares and $380 is enough for you to kind of get some experience with it. I think fundamentally it's undervalued, and it could give you a little bit of experience with running the covered call. But I'm not running those right now. Iranian representatives, we do not want a ceasefire, and we will make the aggressor regret it. See, this is what I'm talking about. These guys keep coming out and conflicting with everything Trump is saying about negotiations or trying to get some resolution here. Schumer indicts Democratic openness to Republicans' DHS deal. That's per Semaphore. So Chuck Schumer coming out saying he doesn't like that the Democrats are open to signing this bill through reconciliation. Which, I mean, they're going to pass it with or without them. But maybe that fixing the TSA situation that we're in. Amcor, by the way, also getting a nice bid. That's up 7%. That is also up 7%. Okay, I just realized I have a podcast in 2 minutes, so I think we need to end the stream. Also, we've been going for 3 hours, so probably... Damn, dude, how is it 12 p.m.? Where does the time go every morning? We usually stop at 11. When did it become 12? Okay. I think that's it for me. I got to go yap for another hour. And then I'll be done yapping for a little bit. Yes, we'll do the market close. We'll have Chris on. We'll do Macro Thursday or Macro Tuesday today. And so we'll get Chris's thoughts on what's going on in the broader markets. S&P, I'm leaving you guys with a red candle. We were green 5 minutes ago. I don't know if we'll get back-to-back green days. We are pretty close to breaking even, but 655.17 down from 657. We are still red. Jason will not be on today. Jason will be on tomorrow. Jason has a doctor's appointment, so he'll be on tomorrow. But yeah, we will continue with Chris today, Jason tomorrow, and then Thursday, guys. I don't think I'm doing a market close. I think I will do a very long market open on Thursday because I need to leave early on Thursday to go to the airport because the flight's at 8:30, which means boarding is at 7. I have to be 4 hours early. Like Newark is just getting ridiculous. So we will do a very long market open. Probably longer than 12 p.m. And yeah, we won't do a market close on Thursday. So that we can try to get there on time. All right, word of the day. What do we got? I don't know how to say this shit. What is this word, bro? What is this? That's a CH, that's a cha, but I think it's a ka this time. Inchoate. Inchoate. Don't tell me anyone knows how to say this shit, bro. None of you guys know how to say this. Just begun, not fully formed or developed. The idea was still inchoate, but the potential was obvious. I think it's a ka, not a cha. I think so. Let's see.
Inchoate.
Okay. Whatever. I was doing 8 instead of ut. Whatever. Inchoate. No one knew that, bro. No one's heard of this word before. No way. How do you say this?
Inchoate.
Inchoate. I mean, I guess you have the O there that kind of signals, but inchoate. It's pronounced you're gay. Oh my gosh. We were talking with TJ yesterday about he hasn't been on the channel a couple years. He was on yesterday, and the gay jokes have not stopped. They have not stopped. All right, I got to get out of here. Thank you, everybody. We'll be back on the close. We'll be here with Chris. We'll see if we can go a little bit green. Until then, we continue with the choppiness. We have the S&P move up and down about 1% within 5 minutes today. So once again, continuing to be a little rough. Most growth stocks are down. Software is getting hit based on that cloud stuff. Fintech's down. Axon's down. Circle's down heavy. Max 7's getting hit. S&P basically flat on the day. All right. Thank you, everybody. I'll see you guys on the market close. Bye, everybody. Have a good one.